Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast, place about games, friends, getting better. My name is Ben Hansen, and I thank thee for being here. We're joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
Tis I.
Tis he. We're joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
And we're joined by Janet Garcia.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for wearing a MinnMax sweater, Janet. That's
man.
Nice.
You got to.
Do you like strategically do it? Is it? Oh, that's right. Do you like map it out for like Wednesdays when we record the podcast? You're like, that is my MinnMax sweater day, or is it just happenstance?
No, I've just.
No, you made her turn the heater off. So.
Oh, that is true. It was making a noise
before the heater was turned off. Also, the heater has been getting progressively louder. I think it needs to just be cleaned out. Because I live with that background noise like constantly. It's really not good. No, I've now redivided my clothes where I now have a drawer of like content sweaters. Yes. Where it's like, these are just branded sweaters that I was given from like Kind of Funny or MinnMax, or I think that's most of them. I mean, I'm making my own now too, but that's just that. And I'm like, well, why not wear the MinnMax one? Because I'm going to be on MinnMax today, and I want to wear a sweater today, so that's why.
I've never connected with you more, Janet. Literally this morning, I made a brand drawer. Because here's my mistake is I thought it was smart.
The grand drawer.
No, but I thought it was smart like during GDC. I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear a MinnMax t-shirt every day of GDC, always be closing, basic stuff. And then I realized I got home and I'm like, well, now I just have way too many MinnMax t-shirts and I feel like a hack walking around my house wearing these things. I'm like, but if I just put it in a little drawer off to the side, maybe I'll only have to come back to it every once in a while on a very special occasion. Kyle, today, it should feel like that special occasion because we're talking about so much good stuff on this podcast. It is a MinnMax day today, boy.
Hansen, can I interrupt with a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you go someplace that you know a lot of people are going to be there, like you go to I don't know what kind of place you go to,
State Fair
or something. Yeah, State Fair.
Yeah.
Do you think I should wear a MinnMax shirt as like because I'm going to be walking around as free advertising?
I mean,
when we went to the coffee shop, I don't know if that made it to the
in
travel
Minneapolis,
log.
It didn't. We weren't filming everything.
The person who rung us out mentioned like, "Oh, what an interesting design!" Like,
yeah,
what is
you
that?
Had the business cards ready.
It has come up a couple times. You know, I'm not saying you have to, Jeff. Would it be a make or break for the company? Probably. If you could just wear it all the time. I will say, like, I do get a surprising amount of comments on like MinnMax shirts, or people thinking they know what it is, but they secretly don't.
But does that go through your mind ever? Like, I'm going someplace, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of people in our demographic. Should I
Ben's at the Taylor Swift concert?
You need to wear a t-shirt anyway.
Out, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to be charging onto the stage or onto baseball diamonds wearing the MinnMax t-shirt. I will say, when we went to the State Fair, Janet and Sarah and I, for the travelogue, for the Trek to Shrek, I did wear the MinnMax t-shirt. And so maybe that was part of the logic. Or maybe it's because I knew it was going to be in the travelogue a lot. So I'm not at that level of sick corporate desperation, but
I can do have a brand drawer. So
yeah, I'm just at the brand drawer level.
Who doesn't is the thing in this industry. Like, I got like a free t-shirt at PAX, and then I was like, great, add it onto the pile. I don't buy shirts anymore. Yeah, I shouldn't be buying any t-shirts. Like, I have a million t-shirts.
This shirt?
Ooh.
I don't know what Sound Drop is. It was just a free shirt.
Now you're just giving it to him.
This hoodie. What is this?
I've been wearing one of my favorite sweaters to like lounge in is my boyfriend's Blair Witch video game sweater. Like that awful game.
Yeah.
Like awful game, great sweater. Also,
sometimes the worst games are
great movie.
Yeah,
let me know that I don't have any logos whatsoever. I usually don't wear shirts with logos. I just want to call that out.
Is that really a conscious effort of you? Like, you don't wear shirts with logos?
Wow.
Just in case you're in like a documentary on Netflix, so you don't have to blur anything out? Or what's the logic here?
Blur it out.
Yeah, that's what Kyle thinks about.
I don't want to be a billboard. Come on.
Really?
Yeah.
Then I can see you try it, you know?
That's right. Hey, on this very episode of the podcast, this very one, we're talking about so much. We're talking about... This can't be right. The gameplay reveal for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We're talking about Janet's trip to PAX West. Everybody's jumping in to help Janet. East. What's the difference? If you go west enough, it's east. But we're talking about...
Make the L's with your hands.
That's right. But we're talking about her, a couple of her favorite games that she played there, the overall experience, all that fun stuff. I'm mopping up a couple games from GDC as well. Cool upcoming indie games. Kyle's been playing a new Castlevania-style game that he's enjoying. What's the name of that game? tune into the rest of the podcast to find out.
You put me on the spot. I know it's got the number 9.
I've got it written down. It's a top secret thing. And then back half the show, some wonderful questions submitted over there on Patreon from the community. And if you're listening to this podcast, thank you, first of all. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, thank you. Small thing. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always click subscribe. We are under 200 people from hitting 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's a small thing for you just to click the little subscribe button, but it's huge for us. So if you're listening, also you go in there, throw a subscribe our way. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you're listening to this podcast and thinking, why aren't these hacks talking about Resident Evil 4? Well, we did a couple weeks ago with Jacob Geller, but also we are talking about Resident Evil 4. We're talking more about Resident Evil 4 than any other outlet you are listening to in your regular rotation, because we are taking the deepest dive on Resident Evil 4's remake. It is Sarah and Jeffem and Kyle and I diving in deep. And so the first episode of the deepest dive on Resident Evil 4, covering everything from chapters 1 through 6, is live on our YouTube channel and also right in your favorite podcast app if you're a $5 supporter on Patreon. So thanks for all the kind words about that game club so far. We're going to be rolling for the next 3 weeks tackling Resident Evil 4. So help support the game club format, everybody, please. All right, let's get to it. Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, the big gameplay reveal. 10 minutes of gameplay this thing. And I got to say, Kyle, I was nervous, man. I was nervous going in, being like, I don't know if I want to see too much for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm looking forward to it, but I want to be surprised. And the way it started out, I was a little bit horrified by like, this is very Breath of the Wild. Like the UI is damn near identical. The music it feels like the exact same music. You hear like a little glimpse of it in that opening section. I was like, I don't know. And then it kept building and building and building. And by the end, I was like, yes, that is exactly, those are the 10 minutes that I wanted to see from this game. And now nothing more. It was a very systems heavy, weird, inspiring gameplay showcase, but it felt like it didn't spoil anything. It just showed you like, by the way, here's the potential possibilities. But I'm curious, like your take as the world's biggest Zelda fan here.
I mean, that was the big thing. It's like potential, right? It's like, hey, we added this thing, and now we're going to let you think about what that means. What are the ramifications of that? Go off and start thinking about that, you know?
That's like literally a newest takeaway is like, at the end.
Which is smart. Like I think that's a great way to sort of share some of the details. I mean, honestly, for me, I'm almost intimidated by it. I'm sort of scared of the sort of options that it'll present me. Like one thing I like about Zelda in general, including Breath of the Wild, is like, hey, here's a problem and you need to figure out, and there's a specific tool that you can use to figure that out, and maybe you need to go find it. You know, it's sort of it's something you can figure out. But now it's kind of like, I wonder if it's going to be like, and here's a problem. And I don't know, like you could throw an acorn on your sword or like, you know, put a mushroom on your shield. You could build an entire rocket ship. Maybe that's the solution.
And then rewind it.
That I may be too dumb for this game.
Exactly. I might be too dumb. But aside from that, it's very exciting and interesting, and does at this early stage feel like, okay, this is going to be a big change to that formula. This will radically change the game in a big way.
Yeah, let's go over just basics here. So the idea is, you know, you've seen Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, okay, it's the same world as Breath of the Wild's world. It's interesting seeing, like, you know, Game Explained did a video breaking down some differences. Like, okay, all the shrines are gone, Sheikah Towers are gone. There's some stuff like Death Mountain has like the Ganon crap flowing out of it. There's like small differences, but it's like, okay,
there's a Borg cube in the distance.
Right. Yep. Weird cubes. But by and large, still the same world. But now there's what they're calling, quote, Sky Islands, right? That we've seen, Link jumping off, all that stuff, yada, yada. But then the big hook of this entire presentation is, but here are 4 new powers that you will have. And we're going to name them and demonstrate how this works. Number 1, recall. So this is for rewinding an object, which we saw in one of the earlier trailers, and people were speculating that is exactly what's going on. It's rewinding stuff, like it's in that early trailer where boulders come down the hill, and you could see that go back in time. But is an awesome pitch for this, because Anuma's like, well, how am I going to get up to these sky islands? They're way up in the sky. And one of the ways it turns out, is there's going to be rocks falling off the sky islands. So the way that you get up there, or one of the ways, is you jump onto the rock, hit the recall ability, rewind time, so the rock goes back up into the sky, and you just treat it like an elevator, which super cool, wild thing. Okay, let me just run through these real quick because there's so much to unpack.
What does that mean for combat, Ben? What does that even mean?
What does it mean for everything? It's so wild. So also the fuse ability, you can create weapons and a lot of other things by combining seemingly any object in this game. Also, there is the Ultra Hand ability, which is a fun callback to Nintendo's history. If you remember on the podcast a while ago, you got to see Kelsey Lewin with that blue Ultra Hand, Nintendo's plastic toy from the 60s. But in Tears of the Kingdom, the Ultra Hand's ability just to move big objects around, specifically the vehicles which you are building with the fuse ability, and kind of readjust where things are at on the vehicles. And then also the Ascend power, which also we saw, I believe, in that first trailer, where it showed Link like bloop, kind of teardrop climbing through, ascending through the...
Wait, what was he doing?
Bloop, like kind of ascending through the floorboards or whatever. So you can go in any cave, anything, you can use this and hit it, and then Link will just shoot up to the top.
You can go up into it.
Yeah. Right. He did say, I guess there's some limits. He had an interesting way of framing that. There are some restrictions, but as long as there's a ceiling, you can use it anywhere, is how he described it. And so it's a different way of getting like the top of a mountain rather than just climbing it. If there's a cave, you can go inside it and then just shoot right to the top by swimming through the rocks. Okay, there's a lot to break down with all these things. Jeffem, as somebody who likes physics, you're a pro physics kind of lad. I'm curious what your takeaway was from these sandbox tools that are showing off.
Yeah, so I sat down and watched the video with my wife because she's been super excited about it. And we both had weird trajectories on it. The first, quarter of it maybe, I was very, my heart sunk a little as it was kind of like, oh, this looks very similar to what the first game was, and the things that I didn't particularly love about the first one. And it was when they started getting into the physics stuff that, as you correctly guessed, my interest was piqued, and that was all super interesting to me. My wife kind of had the opposite reaction to that stuff. She was like, I don't know if I want to be doing all of that and trying to figure that out. I think she's more in the camp of she wants you to give her a weapon that she can just use, and she doesn't have to want to worry about, trying to fuse it to a giant boulder or whatever. I'm
a little bit in that camp too. Yeah. Like I want to get my hands on it, but I'm sort of there too. Yeah.
I'm sure she'll come around to it. But they are intimidating looking systems, just in terms of how much it seems like you can do with them.
Yeah, but it seems like one of those things where it's going to have a huge ceiling, all these systems combining. Oh my God, people are going to delightfully break the hell out of this game in the way that,
the videos that are going to come out of this.
Oh my God.
Are going to be crazy. Yes. All the stuff that people build. Yeah.
But videos are great, but that does not influence my personal experience. When I see something really cool now, I get excited, but it doesn't affect what I did in Breath of the Wild. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's exactly where I'm going with it. It's like, I think there's going to be wild, high-level play for this. And I say break the game, but I mean, that's kind of the point of the game. They want it to be bent and pushed in this way. That's the whole point of, as they put it, multiplicative gameplay or whatever, right? But I think it's still going to be just so surface-level acceptable and accessible is a better word to use. That I don't expect it to be too intimidating just for doing stuff like, okay, fuse, the way they brought it up is like, you get a stick at so many points in Breath of the Wild, like, I'm never going to use this weapon again, what's the point? Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, but if you have fuse, you put a rock on there and suddenly it's a viable weapon again. And yes, your weapons will still break, but if you're just fusing all these weird things as a way to, kind of level out the item playing field a little bit for usability.
And Aonuma sounded insane at some points during that narration where he was like, look, I put a mushroom on my shield. What? Why? And I'm like, why would you do that? Yeah. But then he explained it all has systems. And so those were the kind of things that I enjoyed most about the original Breath of the Wild. And felt like they were underutilized at the same time. Yeah. At least in terms of the physics. I liked having your different powers and bombs and whatnot, but there weren't that many times where it was like, oh, I can push a boulder down on those guys. Like, that's a very specific situation that you had to find that was pretty well telegraphed as something that you could do. And hopefully in this, it certainly seems like, you can just build those things yourself because you're interacting with so much more, and you have so many more things that you can do with those things.
I do worry that you're going to see like videos like the eyeball on the arrow that makes
I was just going to mention that.
Yes.
Right? Like, what if like I play the whole game and then like a week later I'm like, wait, I could have been putting this tail on a sword and it would have changed everything, and I just like
I imagine though some of that will be baked into like I wouldn't say the main quest, but like I could see you getting some of that info maybe even from like an MP, like cryptic NPC discussions or something. Like I feel like some, like with Breath of the Wild, the first game, like with the original Breath of the Wild, I think a lot of us were able to do a lot more than you would necessarily think. So I'm not, even though I did watch this, Kyle, just like you, and I'm like, man, I'm nervous about some of these puzzles. Like, I don't know. Like, I can barely do it when you give me what to do. But I think it's lent itself to creativity and fun in such a cool way. And yeah, the fusibility, hands down, the most memed thing to come out of this 10-minute gameplay thing, because I watched it this morning, and so I just wasn't like looking at any of the content that people were putting out, but I saw like 8 million memes of people like, and then I put a gun on the stick, and then
I saw it.
All this ridiculous stuff. And when the eyeball got put onto the arrow and the arrow honed in on the enemy, I was like, done. Like, oh my God, this game is gonna be so fun. Like, I love stuff like that. I think it's cool that they're catering also towards that lower level combat skill, like in the way they discussed it, like, oh, this is a way, if you have trouble with combat, you can use these tools to kind of outwit your enemies instead of just feeling like you have to grind for a really good weapon. So I would have to imagine that in the puzzle design, they're also being mindful of that idea of base level players and also kind of like, you know, scaling appropriately based on what's optional and what's main quest. But yeah, that was fire. You know, Link going through the little, like, even though I've seen it before, like going through the walls, like I was like, yep, we're done. We're good. This is awesome.
It's the best tone for a presentation because it was just a Numa for 10 minutes being like, check this out. Like, it's just him kind of showing off, just a tease of everything, which is exactly what you want for something like this. But speaking of the memes, I saw on the Zelda Reddit this morning, they're talking about like, oh, did you ever wonder why Link has the weird mullet in this one? And then they show a picture of like, oh, he's turning into MacGyver. It's just with the fusibility, he's just MacGyvering everything and piecing it all together to make it all happen. But then it's fun to see like people really dissecting everything that's in here. And, you know, maybe you could assume it from the way they were showing stuff off, but it's like, okay, we're not going to get like bomb arrows and ice arrows, presumably this time around. The way it's just going to work is you have your default arrow and you can't swap that, but then you're just fusing and like that with ice and ice cube, or, you know, they showed like a tease of like, oh, you can fuse it with a leaf. You know, it's like, I don't know exactly what that would make, but that's going to be weird to have like not variations on these things. It's all going to come down to fusion.
I can't wait to make the most useless weapon ever, because I just know for a fact I'm going to be like, wait, but if you take this sword and you know, put some jelly on it, now it's really slippery. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with it. But I'm excited to find out. I feel like this is the Legofication of Link with the specifically with the building the vehicles. I'm like, this is basically like, you ever see those like boxcar races where like the little derby ones where people like, I made this out of a bunch of Amazon boxes and some duct tape. That's gonna be all of us just rolling down the hills. I'm excited for it.
For sure. Yeah, just the goop between the different logs of the boat and stuff that he made is so interesting. And like that, it's gonna be a lot of managing that battery, because it's interesting just to see like how they're activating stuff of like, okay, you make a little raft and then you put a sail on it and then you put the little fan on it and then you actually whack the fan with your sword to activate it, and then there's a little phone battery icon that'll slowly drain as you're trying to navigate around with it. So I'm curious to see like if that's going to be upgradable. I'd imagine it will be, just so you can fly further and do more stuff. But just the idea of whacking stuff to get around is wild.
So more justice for weapons breaking. There we go. Team weapons break.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Everything will break, but you won't care because you'll be slapping everything together that's possible in this game. It just looks absurd.
I want to be able to pick up the pieces of my weapon and fuse them back together into the weapon I was just.
I'm sorry, we got to draw our limits somewhere with this gameplay, Jeff.
I think too, like, you know, kind of imagining what's to come in terms of like what you brought up, Kyle. With I wonder if I'll put 80 hours into this and not realize I could have put the eyeball in the arrow. I think we'll get some of those more basic use cases displayed through the enemies, because in this gameplay segment they showed an enemy that had a fused weapon. So I imagine that. Part of how they're teaching you what you can create is through those enemies and the weapons that they wield against you.
Yeah, and you say you're worried about people being like, oh, you dummy, why aren't you doing this? Like, I will gladly take a game that's like that, Kyle, just for the explosion of discussion that's going to be happening while everyone's playing this game. Is everyone's going to be tossing out suggestions? I mean, the MinnMax Discord's going to be overflowing.
Feeling though, I gotta admit, like we got to the end of that game where it's like you could open the map. Oh my god! It's
like
so
I don't care
time.
if people. I don't care if people think I played it in a dumb way. Like if you know, putting Resident Evil 4 on, playing it on easy or something. Like I don't really care if someone is going to berate me about that, Ben. But what I don't want is that it's like I miss out on something really cool.
Yeah.
Right. There's a YouTube video from Captain Burgerson that I enjoyed watching, breaking down like the UI changes, because it does look so similar. I'm like, people must be picking up something here.
Oh, and yeah, there was one like. Yeah, like there was one thing that turned on only when he was in the water, but then when he started walking, like there's stuff like that, you know?
Yep.
What does that mean?
Where people are wondering like, oh, does that mean you think that you can dive in this game and then ascend? Because that animation when he's going through the cave certainly looks like him swimming. So maybe you can dive in certain spots and use ascend to like swim back up to the surface.
Which, by the way, horrifying idea, like of being in the rock and like swimming through. Like I don't know if that's a magic meter that can expire and you're just like stuck in there. That's just like that's the thing of nightmares.
Do you ever think about how many dead people are inside mountains right now, dude?
No.
There's probably a lot of them in there.
They're yeah.
Because they tried to.
Well,
killed that conversation.
Anyways, but with the UI, like the most obvious thing maybe is like, oh, there's coordinates on the map now, like on the mini map. So it tells you exactly where you're at, like height wise as well, which is interesting. So like,
we got a blessing for every guides writer out there.
Exactly.
Jeez.
They're gonna have just numbers as walls.
Finally,
for all
I'm like,
these
you get
guides.
to the tree. Okay, it looks like a face. You take a right.
Yes. Yeah. Forget
it should
that.
be facing you before you take the right. Oh gosh.
This is gonna be just a number spreadsheet at this point.
Oh yeah. There's gonna be so many like. Especially with the fusion stuff, it's endless, like, well, seemingly endless content in terms of what you can feel, like these different flow charts of what the base, like, what the environmental, like, things do, and then what the weapons do, and then you, like, pollinate them to make, like, a gun with a leaf on it.
It's gonna be great. But then there is also interesting stuff if you zoom in on that mini map, like, there's caves, right? Because you see him ascend through that cave. But then when you go in the cave and then come back out, there's a little check mark that automatically appears on the cave. So it's nice that it's like automatically tracking where you've been to some extent. Also, it looks like there is a shrine on the mini map. It like looks a little bit different, but it seems like shrines in some capacity will be back. Although it's also right next to another weird rectangle cubey thing that people are still trying to figure out exactly what that is. Kyle, there's also Reddit was really diving in deep and losing their minds. And as somebody who wrote the damn book when it comes to Zelda lore, do you care about this Zonai stuff? Do you know about it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't remember what are the exact details? It's like another race from the past, right?
Right. So it seems like a lot of the old buildings in Breath of the Wild, I don't know if it's in anything in Zelda beyond Breath of the Wild, but a lot of the old buildings were this Zonai race, an early civilization, lost civilization, yada, yada, yada. But then there's just a snippet of a move that's shown in this game that those new enemies use, or Link acquires or something. It's on the screen for a second. And it's called the Zonai Charge. So everyone's like, oh, we were right. It's going to be a huge part of the storyline. So everyone's freaking out about the Zonai stuff.
It's like they're mentioned, I think, in Breath of the Wild. Like, and there's a Zonai armor set, I think. Right?
Is that right?
But it's like, there's not really like any big story about them in Breath of the Wild or anything. So yeah, I love that stuff. That stuff's exciting.
Okay, right on. Do you think you'll be able to fuse weapons to your vehicles and then like ram into people? Do you think I can just put like
Mad Max?
Can I turn this game to MinnMax? I mean, can I like put 4 swords, not on a Game Boy Advance, but instead like just put them on each wheel of a car and then just like run through a bunch of weirdos?
I bet you can.
I bet you can.
Weapons are as objects just like anything else. So you can just pick it up and attach it probably, right?
Right. I would think so.
Do you actually steer the car, though, that you make? Or is it just wheels on a platform and it's just going to go where it's going?
In that very first trailer, their first, where we're like, whoa, that's a vehicle. It kind of looked like he had some kind of steering mechanism. But yeah, that's a good question.
I'm not sure. Making everything except for the steering wheel. Like, oh, I don't know. It can't be done.
That's the one part you can't figure out.
Yeah, he couldn't find the circle. It's like, I don't know, nothing's circle shaped. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, people are still screaming about dungeons. It seems like, hey, this is cool and all, but give us the dungeons. It feels like that's still the biggest question mark around this thing.
That's something they can totally just withhold till launch. I mean, my thought about the Tears of the Kingdom stuff is like we've seen so little to the point where there are complaints.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But the second that game is in our hands, like the Wikipedia article for Tears of the Kingdom will not have an entry that'll be like they revealed surprisingly little about Tears of the Kingdom before the game. You know what I mean? Like it's we're worried about it now, but it's not going to be something that we're talking about in years to come.
Yeah. Speaking of talking about for years, I already saw the discourse a little bit bubbling up. How'd you think it looked, Janet? I feel like this is going to be something we're going to be talking about all year. Is Tears of the Kingdom, yes, but Switch, a little long in the tooth. Well, I'm just having that conversation all year.
I think it looked fine. Like, it looked like what I expected it to look like. It looked like Breath of the Wild, right, in both the art design and the fidelity. That being said, Breath of the Wild did not run well. And frankly, I think it looks a little rough around the edges playing it even a few years after it came out, let alone now. But none of that really ends up mattering because the game is so good. So I think that'll be the same case. I think it'll be a footnote in most people's reviews, and I'm sure plenty of content will be made because there's people that focus on making fidelity based content, like friggin' Digital Foundry will have like really a lot of interesting things to say about maybe the limitations and the whatever. But I'm also on team, like, I don't think the Switch is on its way out the door. I'd be really surprised if we got new hardware from Nintendo like anytime soon. It'd be nice, because why not? But I think they're in on this for a while. So
I think
maybe you should get that OLED. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
It's just going to be weird to see how much people can push this. And there are parts that chugged in Breath of the Wild, but like in a game where you can haul all of these items and theoretically assemble something huge and have it all collapse, like it just seems like it's a recipe for a frame rate disaster. But you know what? If it's like the rare occasion of people trying to break it by making a giant log cabin, that's fine. Which by the way, that is another thing that's interesting. If you look at this gameplay, there are several spots that show like construction sites around the world, like kind of half-finished construction sites. So it seems like one of the things they're holding back on is probably that you'll be doing a lot of rebuilding towns or just building towns.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. Just like the ultimate Dark Cloud sequel. Frickin' hell. Oh, also they confirmed that this thing is done. Development.
They're like, we're done. Which I feel like it's heavily implied by the existence of games coming out, but I feel like most showcases don't have we're done. Like, I don't know. Like, is that just me? Like, I've never seen anyone say we are done. I've seen like we're nearing the end or we just went gold, but like just
going gold,
done.
I feel like I see all the time.
Yeah.
I kind of equate it to that. So,
No, you're right. It is just nice to hear.
Like the language of it just felt like so like casual. Like, oh, by the way, it's ready now.
Take it,
this
please.
Thing has been baking for 5-6 years.
Oh my God. But May 12th, this thing is coming out. I did want to
shout out that something we all assumed, but was happy to have a confirmation that if you just jump from the Sky Islands, it's a clean transition. No loading. Just
the narration there was so funny too. It's like, look how fun it is.
You'll be falling for a very long time.
It is fun to jump from a high height and just fall for miles. That looks fantastic.
I do kind of worry about it. Like, it's a rare instance where it's like, okay, this enemy that he's fighting, it has like a giant fan contraption, fly swatter type thing. So it kind of made Link fly off. But it's like, if you got all the way up to the Sky Islands and then you just get hit by an enemy and you fall all the way down and it's going to be, I don't know. There's going to be multiple ways to do it, but still it's going to be, you have to make some effort to get back up there. I can see that being frustrating, but also that kind of sounds like a fun game moment. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I fell all the way off that thing again. It'd be kind of fun if it was more special every time you're up there, But May 12th, let us know in the comments what we didn't think of for combining these powers, because just based on what we've seen, I'm sure there's a million things that we haven't pieced together. Like that, I feel like Fuse is kind of the go-to, maybe meme fuel at this point, Janet, but like, I think recall and just being able to rewind any object, that is going to be bananas. Like during boss fights, can you rewind like some of their attacks if they have like if they're throwing objects at you to have them hit them instead?
I too was thinking like, can I just go through the ceiling and run away? Like I'm looking to leave. Like I'm not looking to engage in any of these battles. I'm looking to dip as easily as I can.
So we're all worried about being too dumb for this game, and we just want to run away from everything, and that's the tone we're taking for Tears of the Kingdom.
That's why I play everything. You know, when he was like, "Oh, you can create some distance," I was like, "Yeah, let's keep adding it on. Give me the world's longest poking stick."
Just awkwardly holding that 100-yard stick.
Do you think you can only fuse two things? Like, can you?
Good question. Well, no,
they
because
never showed more than two.
Yeah, they do. They do for the logs in the boat. That's still fused.
No, but that's like the God Hand thing.
I think
that's different. That's different. No.
Like,
so he used
fuse and Ultra Hand.
He used fuse to put the logs together, and then Ultra Hand to adjust where the logs were.
Yeah, I guess I mean weapons specifically.
Yeah.
I thought Ultra Hand also sticks things together.
I'm checking the tape.
Was my interpretation of that because I don't know that I saw that goop when he was just fusing weapons.
Yeah. Well, they don't reveal. Oh, maybe you're right. So it doesn't reveal exactly what the name is until he adjusts it, but maybe that does make more sense.
I feel like if it's only two, they might allow for more given certain parameters being met, whether it's like upgrading an ability or like maybe it's not battery based. It's not like that weird stamina battery thing based, but I could see something that like creates like an in-game limitation based on some other meter where it's like, oh, well, you could do it, but you wouldn't be able to really wield it or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope we can put I want to make just a really long stick. Everyone's making stuff I want to make a long stick. That's it.
Yeah, it does look like you're right, Jeff, and that it is Ultra Hand for that. So I take it all back. I take back everything I said about this game. But it is like one of those things of like, you know, people always say, "Oh, why doesn't Pokemon make a game where you can fuse any Pokemon together? Wouldn't that be cool?" I know there's like that fan project, you know, that where you can do it with like the sprites and stuff. But it's like everyone, or I'm sure a lot of developers will have this idea of like, "Hey, what if you could fuse any items together?" It's like, well, that's impossible. That would take like 7 years of development with a top tier team to be able to pull off.
That was funny because like obviously I don't know anything about the development of Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know why it took so long, etc. But like that moment where they had the basics of fuse revealed and how it worked, I was like, oh yeah, I bet that took a really
this sounds like a nightmare. But God bless them for doing it.
They were almost done, and they added just one more object. And it's like, now we got to add that to 100 other objects. Get out of here.
Oh my God. I hope they give another GDC talk explaining this game and how it was made. All right. Hey, that's Tears of the Kingdom. Hey, PAX East happened. While we were all out at GDC, or I guess me and Kelsey and Haley, Janet was out at PAX East, the place to be. It felt like the cool hip show compared to GDC being the somber, quiet, let's talk about game development show.
Tornadoes, apparently.
Oh yeah, with a bunch of tornadoes.
Happened there.
It was a mess.
Anyway,
did you have a good time at PAX East?
Yeah, I had a great time at PAX East.
Really? What was the highlight socially?
Why are you surprised?
Well, no. What was like the highlight socially though?
Oh, socially? I mean, honestly, just getting to see a lot of people in person that I've only met online. I know that's kind of cliched at this point, but I think the combination of the nature of our work, where so much of collaboration and conversation is digital, combined with the reality of the pandemic and the way that halted a lot of events. And then even now it's like, I'm sure there's many people that still don't want to even go to these events due to safety concerns, which I think is totally valid. And I'm glad that PAX East is still a mask mandatory event. And
that's interesting.
Forever is. I think anything that has that many people, you should have a mask on. Like any place that has hundreds of thousands of people, you should have a mask on, just in general. But yeah, just getting to see everybody, you know, a lot of the I did 2 panels. I did one on the GameCube, like, is the greatest console of all time. And the other one was Video Game Tinder. And like, a lot of people I'd never met before in person. And that was really fun. And, you know, I got to get dinner with Steve Saylor and my friend Play It Jason. Oh, nice. So that was cool. You know, Jared Petty was there. So like, catching up with people that I haven't seen. Going to karaoke. I did karaoke for the first time.
What was your first song?
That was fun.
First song, what'd you go for?
I actually played more of a support role because I'm not that interested in karaoke. So
not interested in karaoke?
No, not really. I went for the culture. I didn't go for the tunes, the glory. You know, I sang Taylor Swift's Blank Space because the person singing it was like, who's gonna sing this with me? I don't want to sing it alone. And I'm like, sure, I know Blank Space. Sort. Then I sang it, and I'm like, I don't know it as well as I thought I did, but I knew it pretty well. I was decent. I held my own.
Yeah. I sound shocked about not being in love with karaoke, but then I realized I don't think Kyle and Jeff and me don't seem like karaoke people either. Although Kyle, we did in Japan, right?
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay,
I like
fun.
it. I don't like it in the sort of American bar.
Yes,
setting.
I'm totally with you.
I don't like that, but like the sort of private room.
That's what we did.
Fun.
Yeah, it's definitely the way to go. Yeah, I did some karaoke during GDC as well, and it was super fun, except, there's somebody that I was in there with, and they're like, oh, Disney, I'm really into Disney stuff. I'm like, I've got you. I've got your back. Let's find all these Disney songs. And all the Disney songs were from, like, the remakes. It's like, all right, do you want to do Will Smith's?
Like One Jump Ahead?
It's like Will Smith's Friend Like Me. I'm like, I think there's going to be some weird twist in here that I'm not going to be excited to sing. I don't think I can do it. I got to bail.
So you didn't watch it?
I did watch it. Okay. I just didn't memorize Will Smith's take on all of the Aladdin tracks.
Understandable. And also just seeing like fans was also very cool. Like a lot of people came up to me and talked to me about my work and everything.
If I may, Janet, if I may, this isn't an ego thing, but I'm curious, like, what is the ratio for you for fans from Kind of Funny to MinnMax?
Ask that, and I like know you always ask that.
I know. Kind of Funny's huge. Kind of Funny's huge. I'm curious to see where we're at culturally at a place like PAX.
I mean, I feel like there was...
She's smirking too much. I don't know what this is.
I mean, if you're asking, like, is Kind of Funny more popular than MinnMax?
I'm not.
Yes.
No,
like,
I know
that's
that.
the answer that you're really actually asking me. But people usually, or not exclusively, but oftentimes they did mention, like, my work at Kind of Funny and MinnMax. Okay. I would still say if they only mentioned one, it probably would be Kind of Funny.
Well, yeah.
But, yeah.
So not like 70-30, 80-20, 90-10?
Why do you like this?
I like numbers.
Something to look inward for. Next time you see me, mention MinnMax and MinnMax alone. But I don't know. Maybe 70-30.
Okay. That's great.
Something?
That's great.
I don't know.
That's great.
I don't know. I feel like people mentioned like what I do generally. Right. Or they maybe didn't name the outlets. They said I'm a fan of your work. And I'm like, okay, great. Thanks for watching or listening or whatever. I did see someone.
Is that what you said to them?
To their faces?
No, I was like, anyway. I'm not about to I see where this is going. I'm not about to get grilled on this. I did see, though, one person from our GameCube panel, when we had, like, the audience involvement, they had a MinnMax shirt on.
Ooh,
so people are rocking the shirts, all right?
That's
so
sweet.
There you go.
That is sweet.
A little feather in your cap, Ben. Hold on to that. Keep you through the cold months.
Thank you. Just to fully cross the streams, sure. There's like one mixer where I talked to Blessing.
I know.
A fair bit. Yeah, he's in the travel log for a bit.
Me.
Oh, really? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh God, what'd they say? No, don't tell me it's gonna be too kind. No, they were all very nice. All the Kind of Funny people were super nice to interact with all GDC week. But there was a moment where I think we're talking calendars, and Timur from GameSpot and Giant Bomb, and also Kind of Funny every once in a while, he took out his calendar and showed off his calendar of just like content for the upcoming week. And Blessing did the same. Janet, I've never been more scared in my life. Like, I know they're two very busy, successful people. Those calendars were so packed, I wanted to jump out a window. And I said to myself, if this ever becomes my life of having that much content and that tightly scheduled, that sounds miserable, and it's chilled me to my core. I feel like you do a lot,
though, Ben. You just don't put it on the calendar.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it feels all loose and fun here. I'll put stuff that's communal on the calendar.
Because I'm watching like the Instagram stories we do that you do,
right.
It's always like, hi, what's up today? Like at MinnMax, we have 80 things, and I got back from this one thing, and now I'm posting this other thing, and then and again, of all those things on my calendar, I got like 2 things, maybe 3 from MinnMax, right? It's pretty light, but I mean, people use calendars, Ben. You see, it's not just me. It's not just me. Other people are filling up those calendars.
I just feel it feels less fun if you're making video game content if you're as tightly scheduled as a Blessing or Timur. I think that's what I am scared of at some point. It feels too much like a job. I think that's exactly it. Sorry, but you got to play some cool games at PAX?
Yeah, I play a lot of great games at PAX. Do we just want to run down my favorites? It's funny because people ask me on the floor too, like anyone that I like walked up to or like met casually, I'm like, oh, what do you like on the floor? And they're like, what's your favorite thing? And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. I didn't think of it. And so even when you asked me, I was like, it's time to finally do the work. I'm so stressed about it. But I enjoyed almost everything I played, if I'm being honest. I guess kicking it off, one of the first well, one of the first things I played that I loved, I kind of knew I would love because I technically had played it before at West, but I got an appointment this time for it. This is Bread and Fred from the publisher Apogee and the developer Sandcastle Studio.
Yeah.
When I played it at PAX West, I just played it so the way it works too, like just to kind of zoom out or like behind the scenes stuff. So it depends on like your level of, I guess, clearance, right? I applied for media this time for East because I wanted to be on the like email lists for appointments. I noticed that for West, I just wanted special guests for my panel.
Right.
So I missed a lot of like the PR stuff. And I'm like, no, I really want to see a bunch of stuff. So like when I first played Bread and Fred, I just like sat down. There was like the way a regular person on the show floor would. But this time they had appointments. They didn't have a booth at PAX, but they did have like a hotel room. So set up an appointment for that. Bread and Fred. It is it's a co-op game, but you can play it separately. They did create a single player mode, and you are two penguins, and you're working your way up a mountain, and you're like tethered to each other. And
is it a prisoner situation? Why are they tied to each other? They're just helping each other?
Okay, so I gotta say, and I don't know if like the average people are gonna listen to this later, but and genuinely, I love this game. I'm red hot on this game. I think it's so much fun. But once since I kind of knew it more and I was more comfortable, and I was playing with Isaiah. Isaiah was there with me on a lot of my appointments, almost all of them, and like he was my player 2 for this. I was losing my mind playing this game, and I'm like, I hope y'all don't take this unprofessionally. This is just my natural reaction. It is so fun and so funny. I was laughing. I was in tears trying to ask my dumb question, and I have good questions, but this one was a dumb question that I asked where I was like, okay, I gotta know. And I was like through tears at the end of the appointment. I'm like, so Brett and Fred, are they friends? Are they brothers? Are they just,
what's going on here?
What's going on?
Penguins with benefits, yeah.
Yeah, and the developer is like, they're whatever you kind of want them to be. So feel free to impose, your own lore on Brett and Fred. I will say one of them has like a taller head and like kind of a big forehead. That's the character I played as. It wasn't intentional, but did work out.
Interesting. Yeah, so it seems like, remember that game we played for New Show Plus at some point called Fling to the Finish?
Yes, and that was also on the floor.
Oh, was it really? Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Where people are tied together. It's like, I think that's such a good format for just a silly co-op game to have the physics chaos in there and stuff.
I will say this is definitely much tighter than that kind of game.
Okay.
At a quick glance at it, and if you're watching the video version, you can see the gameplay. It visually almost looks kind of like Celeste in setting because you start out on this wintry mountaintop.
Right.
But you do your jumps together, and you can kind of like have one person smoosh themselves down to like act as an anchor while the other person swings. And one really cool thing about, I think, doing coverage in this way where you're seeing on the show floor like throughout the year or throughout the years is you do get to see the little changes. So from like my time at West to now East, they added in emotes, which normally it's like, okay, it's cute. Like I'm talking to them though. Like why am I going to use it? They added in one that is a 3, 2, 1 countdown that appears. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Because now I don't have to just keep saying, all right, when are we going? When are we going? You just look at the thing. So even in that small amount of time, I feel like they're making some really cool changes. Difficulty wise, it is quite challenging, but they have a system you can toggle on to put flags down at will, which act as your own checkpoints. So that's what makes it feasible for me because it's very hard otherwise, but it's so fun. It's so funny. There's so much care in like when you fall down really far, Link Tears of the Kingdom style, you like face plant and then you just stay there until you like get up.
Perfect.
But it's just such a joy to play. And I think it is really tightly and well made. So unlike other kind of wonky, physicsy, it's funny because that we're like bad at it. It feels like I'm bad at it because I'm just not good enough, not because it was made to be super slippery or anything. So I like love the hell out of this game. And they also showed us at the end the current speed running like record for this game.
Oh, fun.
And when I tell you, I watched like pro gamer out of someone just flying through the level. And I was telling the team, I'm like, I think the fact that someone can do this so smoothly is like a testament to what you've designed, though, in terms of even being able to pull off movements that quickly, that sharply. So
yeah.
Another thing that's cool is it's also single player. So they when it's single player, it's you and you're tethered to a rock, and the rock can like cling to stuff the same with the other person. And then the funniest thing, hold on, I have notes on this. When it's you and the rock, and this is why I was crying during this appointment, like laughing at how fun and enjoyable this game is. when it's you and the Rock, it's not Brett and Fred, it's Greg and Jeff. I forgot which one is which.
Perfect.
And it's just like the fact that they name the Rock, like, look,
that got
if you get it, you get it. Like, it's so fun.
There's a demo out for Brett and Fred on Steam if everybody wants to check this thing out.
It's so good. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's nice. There's a game called Backpack Hero that you wanted to talk about that also, it's out on Steam right now in early access.
Yeah.
But it's a inventory rogue game.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was up your alley?
Oh, yeah. It's if you like the inventory management of Resident Evil,
right.
And you enjoyed Loop Hero, you need to play this game.
Ooh.
It was so fun.
Okay.
I mean, and also if you've always kind of dreamed of being someone who uses your items, I think this is also a very cathartic game for that.
Finally get them out of your inventory.
Exactly, because that's the game loop. You like have to use your stuff. Like that's the whole mechanic. So essentially, the way it works is you're going from like, floor to floor, like room to room, dungeon to dungeon. You encounter enemies. Along the way, you pick up items. So it might be something like, you have like a sword and maybe a consumable item or like 2 consumables, and you have to, slot them in a way that they'll fit. And you have like a grid in your backpack that you see at the top of your screen.
Yeah.
Over time, you also gain inventory slots and also gain items. And there's like some cool, like funky stuff going in with like the placement of where you put stuff on an inventory. So at one point I picked up an item that was like a glove that added extra like shield or something. And it added, the buff increased for every space to the right of that item there was. So it's like, okay, there's a little bit, besides just wanting to fit a lot of stuff into a space, there's a bit of gameplay in just where you place a certain item based on if it has like any effect on, the buff or the debuff of that item.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. You're fighting enemies, they'll have, it'll show it's turn-based combat. So it'll show you above the enemy, like what their next move is, like if they're going to block or if they're going to hit. So you can kind of, your turn is based on kind of AP, the way it would be in any like turn-based combat where it's like you have this much energy or something to use. Then you have like consumables that might increase that energy, and you can see like, how much health the enemy has. And the combat goes really quick, really smooth, really easy. It is all just using those items. So whether you're using your sword to attack that's in your backpack, or you're using some type of like buff or debuff or, other additional weapon or anything like that. That's basically the flow of things. And you can like drop stuff from your inventory and add things as you continue to gain spaces and go throughout it. So I will say that one of the key differences between this and Loop Hero is since it is like based on that inventory spot, you're just going through those rooms. Like you don't have like Loop Heroes, you're kind of zoomed out and kind of slowly watching a lot of things happen. Here it feels like you're more involved because of like the layout and the design of it.
Sure.
They are adding a town element to it as well, so it's still in early access and they're still building into it. So I think if any of those things sound appealing, like the inventory management of RE, the general flow of Loop Hero, or the idea of finally getting to use items when you maybe have never have, because that's me playing games. I really enjoyed this one a lot.
Yeah, Backpack Heroes and that thing. There's a game that was also at GDC that was a hot one. Like Xbox was really showing it off in a big way, and it's called Botany Manor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like at the Xbox Mixer thing. And it was like up on the big screen there. Kind of got like center stage, which is interesting. And so Balloon Studios is developing this thing. Yeah, it's a first-person game. You're wandering around a manor, learning about this old house and the people that live there and whatnot. But it's all based on puzzles about growing seeds, right?
Yeah, basically. It's you play as a retired botanist who's kind of getting back into it and sort of relearning or rediscovering old notes. So essentially you're exploring this manor and you go room to room and you use the stuff in the environment and also like the clues you see along the way or can interact with along the way to solve the puzzle of how do you grow this plant. So it starts off, unsurprisingly, pretty simple, right? With the first one, it's a matter of, okay, I got like this postcard and the seeds are from, I'm making up the location because I don't remember, like Italy. And then I see a chart that mentions what temperature this plant grows at based on the region, but also, what type of plant is it again? Let me look at the pack of seeds. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so it's 68 degrees. Let me set this, and then boom, it blooms, and you go continue through the manor. And some of them are more fantastical than that. Like one of the puzzle solutions is you take like an old school photograph and the flash is the thing that causes it to bloom. Ooh. So it does get a little funky at times.
That's cool. So it's kind of just a more puzzle focused, gone home, centered around growing plants. Like that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a walking sim. I think the things that pop to me in terms of comparisons are, for vibes, I think Strange Horticulture. For gameplay, I think of the botany section in Escape Academy, actually.
Oh,
comes
okay,
to mind.
sure.
So, visually it has kind of that soft, painterly look, kind of like Witness-esque, Maquette-esque, like what you see in a lot of these sort of first-person puzzle games. But yeah, I thought the puzzles were really well done, controlled great. I booked all of these appointments thinking like these games might be good. Obviously, who's booking stuff for like, oh, this looks awful, let me see it. But still, this really surprised me because it's exactly what I hoped it would be when I kind of heard that initial pitch.
Yeah.
And I think if you like, puzzle stuff, if you like cozy games, plant games, this is going to be one that you want to pay attention to.
Botany Manor is the name of that one. Yeah, speaking of which, there was a game that I didn't see at GDC, but now I'm kicking myself in the butt for not going on my way to find. Because I feel like for so many there's so many indie mixers and all this stuff at GDC, and you wander around, you look at so many games, and it's a lot of like, that looks good. All right, I got it. And I was just looking for something that like wowed me. And I feel like if I would have seen this demo, it would have wowed me. But it's a game called Viewfinder, which is also a first-person puzzle game. Jeff, have you seen Viewfinder?
I saw just a short like
is it the one I posted in Slack or whatever?
Twitter video. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Wasn't it on a PlayStation showcase?
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was. God, I completely forgot about it. But yeah, it's coming out this year. It's from Sad Owl Studios, and Thunderful's the publisher. But the premise for this is you have like an old Polaroid camera, and you're taking a picture of stuff, or you have pictures, and then wherever you place the picture in this first-person game, you then move, and the world will distort. For example, if you take like a picture of a castle and then you set it in the world, then you can then walk into the picture and the picture becomes a 3D environment that you can navigate. And so trying to wrap your mind around puzzles with this, it feels a little like superliminal. Yeah, Maquette, you mentioned, it feels like in that vein, just mind warping puzzles, but it's one of the coolest ideas I've seen in games in a long time. It's just more f-stop material, Kyle, from Valve.
Yeah, it is reminiscent. That was like my first thought of the superliminal kind of type of game. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you haven't seen footage of it, look up footage of Viewfinder just to see this, because it looks freaking wild. Janet, just from the outside, do you think that Final Fantasy 16 was like the biggest big game at PAX? No offense to the indie games. Jill Grote, don't cut my throat, please.
I mean, in terms of especially like that panel, I think was fairly popular, or like Final Fantasy in general. Like I ran into some of Isaiah's friends who were on the floor, and they were big Final Fantasy fans, and they're like, "Oh, we were gonna go to the panel, and then we like went, and it was 30 minutes, but then it was already booked, and then I was so sad, I was so distraught, and then I realized, oh my god, that's the wrong Final Fantasy," which is funny that even the fans can mix them up. But, like they wanted the other one, the Final Fantasy
14.
God, what is it? Yes, the one that had like the big talk and all the gameplay stuff came out of it.
Wait, so 16 was the big talk one, right?
Sure. Whatever one was the one that had.
No one can keep these.
You know what I'm trying to like get at. It's the one that had the developer talking, and there was like all these snippets written about like what came out of this like panel. That's like the one.
Yeah, the new one, 16. Yeah,
16. Sure. They're like, oh wait, no, it's 16. Cool. They were like trying to go to like I think 14 or something before, some other panel that's unrelated. And then they went, and they did say that, and I forgot what day it was on. I think it was on Saturday. And they're like, oh, I'm surprised that it wasn't like completely full. No offense to like the panel or anything, but like, I don't know. Like that's one thing they've noted on. But the other thing that came to mind for it was one, they were like, oh, I love how succinct it was. Like it gave all this information. And I was all in on it. Like it seems like if you were a fan or are following that game, that you got a lot of good stuff out of that panel. And then another anecdote thing was one of them had a bag, like one of those like little convention bags from it, and someone was stopped them like on the floor and they're like, where'd you get that bag? And they went off to go find it because again, like, Final Fantasy runs
the fandom. It's got everything. Yeah, I watched the panel. It's all online if you want to check it out. This is for 16. But when it started, here's a commentary directory. When it started, it kind of reminded me of everything that I was worried about with Final Fantasy 16, of just like, they have the main character and he's like, I slept in a gutter, I've killed more men than I could possibly count. Like, who wants that? I don't want this gruff, bloody Final Fantasy nonsense. But then like the entire panel, Yoshi P at this point, after so many years of just getting beaten down and built back up with Final Fantasy 14, like they are so good at communicating with the community, because the theme of the rest of the panel was, hey, here's all the fan questions. Here's all the things you all are worried about with 16. And here's point by point. Let's break it down, and I'll be honest with you and tell you exactly where we're at. Where it's like, okay, first of all, everyone's saying that the game is dark and it's small corridors. Like, incorrect. It was just like the first big media blast. We invited people to play. We had them play that area to focus on combat. And the reason we gave them that area is because we finished that area first. So that's the only reason that everybody thinks this game is dark. And now here, I'm going to boot up a PS5, prove I'm actually playing. I'm going to show you some big open desert area that also you'll be exploring in 16. And like everyone worried about the lack of RPG mechanics. Like, here's why you're wrong. We're going to be going more into RPG mechanics in the future, stuff like that. So it was so refreshing just to have a panel. It kind of point by point seemed to be very much hearing where the fan base is at and what we're worried about. And I still am worried a little bit about the tone and just kind of the world and whether I will enjoy talking to people in this game. It's still, we're coming up on the launch of this thing in June, and I feel like I haven't seen a character that I really want to interact with yet in Final Fantasy 16. And like for a series all about characters, it has me a little concerned. But so
That's
many,
always been my question.
Right. But so many other beats, I feel like they are on top of it. And so you can check out that Final Fantasy 16 trailer if you want to see more of the world and see them actually running the game on a PS5, which is cool to see. And also, I just appreciated them booting up the PS5 version and just constantly being like, oh, I hope this doesn't break. Oh, I hope it doesn't break.
Yeah, that seems stressful.
It definitely seems stressful. But then, like, we really want to prove to you that this is real gameplay. So, like, the translator reached over and, like, grabbed the controller and just wiggled the analog sticks just so the character flail around. It's like, it was a good, classy way of showing it off.
I would have pulled up an MP4 and been like, you know what? You don't need to see what it actually looks like.
Let's slowly walk you through all these environments, yeah. Kyle, I was thinking about Final Fantasy when watching this 16 stuff. Remember how like so much of the messaging from 15's press cycle, and I remember like, visiting them for the cover story trip as well at Game Informer, they were big on messaging like Final Fantasy 15 is a make or break for the series. Like if this game doesn't knock it out of the park, Final Fantasy might be done. And I was just thinking about like, now we're at Final Fantasy 16. I don't know if I feel that way. Also, I don't know if 15 really was a make or a break, but is it just all null and void because 14's bringing in so much money that like the concept of these entries being make or break is just less important now?
I mean, what did that even mean at the time? Like,
right? I guess so. Like, it's just a captivating quote to
really
have.
Stopped at 15. If 15, I'm sure 15 sold just fine, right? It didn't. It's not really anyone's favorite Final Fantasy or anything.
I bet there's some weirdos.
Like, I think it was a hit, but if it wasn't. Do we really think we wouldn't have 16? I don't know.
They would have tried it, but maybe just with a much smaller budget. I mean, it's telling, that they canceled all that DLC for 15. I mean, that was kind of a pretty telltale sign.
I remember like Fire Emblem Awakening, right? That was the first 3DS one or DS one. Like they said retroactively that they were like, if that one wasn't a hit, we wouldn't have been making more Fire Emblems. Right. And like that, I believe. Like that, I am like, I have full faith that was a factual statement, but I don't know if I feel the same about 15.
Yeah. Anyways, looking forward to 16. It'll be a journey.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Jeff, we played this, it feels like 13 years ago, that game called Storyteller.
Correct.
But this thing's actually out now from Annapurna, the developer Daniel Ben-Mirgui. Jan, did you get a chance to play Storyteller by chance?
No.
Okay, that's fine. It seems cool. So this is the game that we streamed the demo of a long time ago. I think it's like for a Steam Next Fest, where you're creating panels and mixing and matching things in the panels to try and fill these objectives of like, oh, break a character's heart, go. And then you got to piece things together that makes sense. You streamed it for a couple hours, Jeffem?
I streamed it for like an hour and a half. And I guess if we want to jump straight to my only criticism of the game, I stopped early because I didn't want to play the entire thing in 1 2-hour stream.
Oh, you think it's that short?
It is that short. I finished it after the stream, and so it's like 50 puzzles, but you go through them pretty fast. That criticism aside, like it is one of the most interesting and most entertaining puzzle games and unique puzzle games that I've played in a long time. It's kind of Scribblenauts-esque in terms of just like giving you an overarching goal and then you have to figure it out. It is more focused than that because they give you the specific characters or whatever that you have to work with within those panels.
Right.
But it's just a lot of fun kind of discovery of even once you figured out the solution, it's like, no, I want to go back and I want to put those two characters in that scene. So that one will murder that one. And then in the next scene, you know, the character that was in love with that one will be upset at that one. So that will trigger a completely different thing. And it's just kind of emergent trial and error and seeing, you know, the cause and effect of all these different pieces that they give you to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. So Storyteller. So, okay. It's on PC and Switch, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally worth your time, even though, you know, you'll get through it in a couple of hours, but just if you enjoy puzzle games and are, you know, looking for something that's completely different from anything else that you've played.
Yeah.
Definitely it's worth taking the time to check out. I feel bad because I know the developer worked on it for like 10 years or something ridiculous like that. And then I breezed through it in a couple hours and was like, okay, I want part 2 now, please.
More stories.
Yeah. But really, really creative, really fun twist on kind of making up stories in a puzzle format.
Yeah, right on. Kyle, I'm trying to figure out your scale of love in your heart of hearts for this game. 9 Years of Shadow. This is the new, you could say Metroidvania, but let's get rid of that Metroid. This is just a Castlevania-like.
Yeah, it's funny because Jeff was talking about Storyteller, and he's like, "This is, you know, it's unique. It's like nothing you ever played before." And I'm like, "Well, this actually I like because it really reminds me of Symphony of the Night a lot." Right.
If you like Symphony of the Night, you should check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I play a lot of these, you know, like Castlevania and Metroid-inspired games, and I have bounced off a lot of them in recent years. Even the Igarashi one.
Oh, really? Bloodstained?
Yeah, Bloodstained like didn't click for me. It got too open too quickly, and I was too lost too fast.
Huh.
And I think 9 Years of Shadows is condenses it, and like I think it's just really focused on like smart design of like letting you explore the map at a good pace. It doesn't open up too much too quickly. And then I just also like the designs of the protagonists, and it's got just kind of like you're bringing color back into the world, and like you find musicians around the castle that are all like congregating in this music hall, and that's where you go for upgrades and stuff like that. And it's just solid, right? It's just like these guys clearly liked Symphony of the Night, and they have their own story and characters and everything, but the basic structure, I feel like they've done a really good job with it. I did hit a couple bugs, like, and it crashed on me a few times on my Steam Deck, and they even I think I tweeted that, and the devs actually like replied to my tweet, and they have some patches that are already, you know, lined up and stuff. So maybe it's already cleaned up, but but if you like Symphony of the Night and you've kind of been jonesing for one of those, of which there are plenty, admittedly, this is a good one. I would put it a pretty high on my list. Like I would put it above Bloodstained.
Jesus. Yeah, it does feel like I was also playing it on Steam Deck a little bit. It's like, oh, this feels like a great follow up to like if you really love the Return to Castlevania DLC on with Dead Cells and you kind of want more. It's like, you know what?
Which, like, I liked that a lot, but it did make me jones for something closer to this kind of experience. So maybe the timing is just particularly good as well.
Right, something that's not a rogue game and stuff. Yeah. But it's cool just to have like that opening level that you play through being all black and white. It's like it's not that often you get a black and white game.
And there's some cool like magical girl stuff, you know, like Sailor Moon inspired like animations for costumes and stuff like that. That are well done. The animations are really good and fun. I like them a lot.
Yeah. Also, I was amazed. Just it's on PC and Switch, and on Steam at least, it's on sale at launch. It's $16. It's like, oh Jesus, cool. that seems pretty wild. Also, soundtrack is ridiculously good. And then like I looked into it.
You gotta have a good soundtrack if you're making a Symphony of the Night game.
Yeah, I know they had like bullet points of like, oh, we have such and such a composer. We went and looked into it. Yeah, so it's a composer who's worked on the Castlevania series. Norihiko Hibino, who worked on some Metal Gear Solid games, like the cinematics from Metal Gear Solid 4 type of stuff. And then Minami Matsume, who's a composer who worked on like Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 2. Like she goes way back with a bunch of classics. And so I'd love to see a breakdown of who composed what tracks, but it sounds great. Just a bunch of synth stuff in there. But 9 Years of Shadows. I promise you, Kyle, you will forget the name of this game by the time we talk about the 210s. But we're all going to try our best to remember that 9 Years of Shadows is a cool Castlevania.
Look, we alphabetized the list. It's way up there. It's like right up on top.
Does that get explained? Like, is it like in the beginning? They're like, it's been 9 years of Shadows.
That's literally how it opens up. I believe. It's damn close.
I mean, it's kind of cool. Like the protagonist has been training for 9 years to sort of try to take care of these shadows. I like the setup. I'm usually my eyes.
These damned shadows.
My eyes do kind of glaze over when you get the opening, the Star Wars scroll. Right. But I actually thought it was pretty well done.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Do you guys have a sense of how long it is?
I haven't beat it. I have no idea.
I probably played like 4 hours, and I got like 2 of the 4 outfits.
Okay, that's not too bad.
But I imagine that I probably played like 30 or 40% as opposed to straight half.
Nobody has submitted yet on how long to beat, so hot off the presses, everybody. Also, there's a lot of hugging a teddy bear, so if you're into that, you wouldn't expect that in a Castlevania game, but it seems like a big thing.
Why does it give you like powers or something?
It like recharges your projectile shot.
You know, it's a good game for hugging little plushies and things, because the Bayonetta game has that too, where you use like a little hug mode.
Yeah.
You, like hug your little cat.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that in the future, because I just played the demo of that Bayonetta Origins, but I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll be there with you by the time we end up talking about it. I'm still only like 2 hours in, so like, it's not a lot to say yet, but
sure.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it too.
Right on. Let's keep this little indie roundup going here. Terra Nill came out this week, which had a demo. I feel like it's been talked about for a long time. Devolver published this thing. The developer is called Free Lives, and they made Broforce, if you remember that. And they made Genital Jousting. If you remember those GIFs, some would say they're unforgettable.
The Free Lives did this too, then, because they're also doing Angerfoot.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So they just released this, but then they're also making Angerfoot, which is like that first-person Hotline Miami, which looks like one of the most aggressive games ever made. And then they're also making Terra Nill, which is, you want to say city builder, but Jeff, how would you describe Terra Nill?
I think I've seen it referred to as a reverse city builder.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is pretty accurate, but still, it's the city building genre.
Yeah, sim type of thing. Like
it's
starts
a nature builder,
I guess, but you're like using technology to revive nature.
It's like a nature reclaimer.
Right. I guess so. Yeah. Have you been playing it at all, Janet?
No, I just have been following it a lot. And I've been meaning to get to it, and it was funny because I saw it on the floor, and I'm like, I should make time for that. And then like the next day, they're like, it's out, and I'm like, I didn't even realize it was coming out this soon. So
yeah, I was surprised by it too. Right now, it kind of has a, I don't know, I want to call it like a power wash simulator kind of satisfaction of just like being in these decrepit, arid environments, and then just letting the power of green and Mother Nature overtake it as you're slowly reclaiming it, like building rivers out and stuff and throwing beehives everywhere and trees. But have you enjoyed it so far, Jeffem?
I 100%ed it yesterday.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, I did enjoy it.
Jesus Christ.
I really want you to say I hated it, actually.
And I hated it.
I'm a masochist.
Yes.
Down with Earth.
Yeah. It's on Netflix. It's on your Netflix account if you have Netflix, the mobile version.
But it's also on PC. Yeah, don't be scared away by Netflix.
But yeah, it's really it's an interesting kind of unique take on that, and it's because it plays out in addition to you're doing the opposite of what you do in a city builder. It plays out over each level plays out over a couple different stages. Where first you're just trying to revitalize the land with a couple different machines that you have, and it's kind of this spatial puzzle of trying to maximize how you like water each square of land and whatnot. And then once you get past that, you're building up different biomes, which each kind of have their own requirements, and you're changing the climate with a couple different machines, and then you are repopulating them with animals. And then after you repopulate with animals, you have to clean up all the machines and kind of pull everything out until you're just left with a completely, serene natural landscape.
Awesome.
And then you do that across like four different levels, which are each in a different zone, like temperament zone, essentially. And it's an interesting. Each step is its own interesting puzzle and kind of more spatial than I was expecting from kind of a SimCity game. But it's the last it's that last step that's really interesting and unique for this kind of game, but also just kind of really satisfying of like, well, it's cleanup time, and you have to make sure that everything that you build is within kind of an area of the other type of objects that you use to clean them up. And so you're kind of building out these nodes. It's more so than other games in this ilk. It's one that you want to kind of think through all of the different stages as you're doing them. You're trying to think ahead and being like, okay, I have to cover all this land and get out all the machines that I need, but I also want to do it in a smart way that will aid cleanup once you get to that section. And then you're just kind of, even once you have it all figured out, it's like you go node by node, and each time you click on one of the nodes, it sucks up all the machines that are around it, and they all kind of disappear.
Awesome.
All the animals are happy and everything, and you just kind of go through step by step until it's all cleaned, and then your little aircraft takes off and takes you to the next. And so it really nails the cozy vibes as well as being an interesting and unique kind of reverse engineered city building type of game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I played. You know, I think the sim genre is always, they can be intimidating fast, and this is a super approachable version of it. It feels, almost PopCap-esque in like the simplicity of what's going on here. But that said, I got stuck because I'm very dumb. But I was trying to make more wetlands and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It's like you need to be in a low-lying area. Okay, am I missing something, Jeff?
There are and this is kind of the trade-off for that, trying to make it approachable so your brain doesn't break if you're like, hey, by the way, you got to worry about changing climates, and you got to worry about the biomes that you're making for all these animals. They take you step by step. So there are some times when you can you'll get to like the fourth step or whatever, and it's like, oh man, I wish I would have known that, and I would have built out this area different. But you usually can kind of re-terraform different places and figure out how to undo this stuff. But sometimes they give you the option to just restart the specific phase that you're on.
Right.
Each time you go through like 3 or 4 phases, and sometimes that is just the easiest answer. I don't know what you were running into specifically with your wildlands problems, but
there's a wetlands. There's a Ghost Recon wetlands problem. But yeah, Terra Nill. That's cool. I mean, a cute little thing or something more special than that? I'm still trying to gauge where you're at with this, Jeff.
A little more than a cute little thing.
Okay.
I put Storyteller in the cute little thing section. This is one step up from that. It is. They give you alternate maps once you get through all the 4 different levels. I don't know if that's enough to get me to jump back in. And
you had a good time with it.
Keep on going. But I played it probably like 8 hours yesterday. So
Jesus Christ, man,
that works. Awesome. And if you have Netflix, you can easily check it out.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Did you play it on phone?
I did. I played the mobile version. The mobile version works great. So
that's a solid way to
worry
play. Okay,
about.
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Terra Nill's the name of that thing. Let's see. Kyle, do you want to hear about a good game or a bad game?
Good game.
Good game? Yeah. Okay. This is my favorite type of gaming experience, where I just was looking on Steam what was new, and there was a game, and it was called Pineapple on Pizza. And I said, well, this is a dumb name for a game. What could this possibly be? And I clicked through it thinking like, oh, maybe for the next cream of the Steam, Serenata can play this. This sounds good. And then I saw that it's sitting at overwhelmingly positive on Steam.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Don't look up too much. Be careful with this one. So I was like, what could this possibly
I think I've seen
be?
People sharing this around.
Oh, really?
Okay. Oh, yeah, please. Yeah.
So it's just a first-person game, very cutesy-looking, ambiguous Polynesian society with people on an island all singing and dancing. And so it's a game that you can finish in under like 10 minutes, and also it's free. And I think it's just on Steam now, but it's called Pineapple on Pizza, which guaranteed is a weird name. It's intriguing enough to get me to click through to play this thing. And so you're just walking around exploring this island, and everyone's singing and dancing and like moving to the music, very much like New Super Mario Brothers, ba, ba, that type of thing, where everyone's just dancing. There's a crowd doing the Macarena and stuff. Without saying too much, I don't want to overhype it or anything, but I was absolutely delighted with the direction that this thing went. And it's a short little experience. Just explore for a while on that island. And if you're into, I don't know, quirky, weird comedy games, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, it's a cool thing. So Pineapple on Pizza, everybody. It's short. It's free on Steam.
Apparently it's 10 minutes. So
right. Yeah.
It sounds like just enough time for me to be willing to play it.
And you could get to the quote unquote ending in like 2 minutes, 1 minute probably if you did it right.
What was that game? Kids? Do you remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of like that zone of like?
No, this is more.
Or should you just not say more and I should just check it out?
No, I don't know. It's more the remember like The Looker from, was it last year or 2 years ago? That's kind of like a Witness parody. Yeah. Imagine like that, but just like 1/30th of the scope, like kind of that type of just weird, quirky thing.
It's so like, it's funny you saying like, don't look this up. And I'm like, no, I'm already looking it up. And even in the about, they say, like, where do they write it? They say like, stop reading and just
play it.
Go and play. Yeah, we encourage you to stop reading and just play it. Surprise does enhance the flavor.
Yes.
Which I want to hear every developer say that on stage when they're talking about their games. Surprise does enhance.
That was, I think, Anuma's exact quote. I think for that.
That's what I got out of the Breath of the Wild.
Mario Odyssey.
Not Breath of the Wild. What is it? Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to mess it up.
They boldly called it. The original name was The Legend of Zelda, not Breath of the Wild. Was the working title for Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, bad game, real quick. Look, no game's bad.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a fake. It was like a fake decision that you had Kyle make. This is like the Pokemon of decisions. Like, how do you feel? Good, bad? Well, it doesn't matter because you're gonna go this thing anyway. So
Janet, I would love not to be the Pokemon decisions of gaming podcast, but what are we gonna do? Not talk about Crime Boss Rockay City? Janet, we have to talk about Crime Boss Rockay City. If you don't remember this game, this is the game that very much was like a Payday-inspired first-person shooter, but the whole hook was like, you won't believe all these 90s stars that we got to be in this game. And so the first trailer almost made it look like, is this them doing like a Vice City? But it's like, no, it's not an open world game. It is just a first person shooter, very Payday inspired, except it's set in the 90s and Michael Madsen is playing our main character. And so it's a young looking Michael Madsen, but with like the old, nearly destroyed Michael Madsen voice, which is just jarring as hell. And Kyle, this has to be like intentional, right? Because it's set in the 90s, very 90s inspired, all this stuff. His character in the game, his name is Travis Baker. Do you think like with Travis Barker from Blink-182, your favorite person on earth, do you think they're trying to like inspire a little 90s but not get legally dead on?
I think I wrote a little preview for the magazine. And I think I wrote Travis Barker right. And had to like change it.
You got to change it.
But I never connected those 90s dots. I think of Blink-182 as a 2000s band myself.
Yeah, okay. All right. You know what? You're probably right.
I haven't played this, but I was editing Game Informer's review this morning. And it was a lot. Our reviewer Wes LeBlanc, like a couple days ago, was basically just having an existential crisis about having to review this game. I felt so bad for him. He gave it a 3. That's what I'll tell him.
Wow. Well, that's
How
actually
long is it?
It's a roguelike. So.
Yeah, that is the weird thing is they pitch it as it's a unique roguelike experience for playing the quote unquote campaign. So you play as like,
wait, I thought you guys were joking. Are you serious?
Well,
it's a roguelike. It's actually not really. You reference Payday, but it's not really like a multiplayer game.
Well, it is. There's the co-op missions.
There's multiplayer modes, but I think primarily you're playing the roguelike single player stuff. I haven't played it, so have you played it, Ben? Or?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not just talking about the trailers and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think the core of it, I think they probably want to push you to the co-op stuff because the campaign, at a certain point they try and pitch it as a unique roguelike experience. I was like, I don't know if you can call this roguelike. Like every time you die, I guess you level up and you can unlock like a ability. It's like, plus 5% health for the next run or something. But it just seems like a way to kind of gloss up a kind of confusing and abridged campaign in some ways. But you're trying to take back Rockay City, and Ice-T is there, and he's running drugs in the city, and you got to take him down. And when you get a game over, it just cuts to Ice-T DJing a party and celebrating your death. But the big thing is they got all these 90 stars. Hey, Chuck Norris is the sheriff in this town with some of the most abysmal acting I've ever heard in a video game. It is so rough. And like Danny Glover's in there and Michael Rooker. But then like the weird thing is, Kim Basinger's in there. And there's so many scenes where they're just like, their hook is just, hey, we're young again. So everyone's always just like complimenting each other on how they look. You know, like it's like Michael Madsen getting into the game. He's like, don't I look handsome? And then Kim Basinger's always like literally in like a skin tight dress, just like shoving her butt all around the room. And she's like, ooh, aren't I looking great? It's like, I'm sure the actors are into the idea of having like this 30-year-old version of themselves be revived, but it's just weird when all the characters keep talking about how hot everybody is. So yeah, sure. We like the 90s, I guess. So yeah, run, don't walk. Everybody please play Crime Boss Rockay City. Honestly, when I saw those reviews, Kyle, when I saw the reviews were so bad, then I was like, all right, I have to check it out. I have to see it.
The same way.
Yeah, dude, you should.
I got to at least check this thing out.
You should boot it up. You should boot it up. It's a hoot. All right, Jeff, my dear Jeff, do you know how this whole thing operates?
Crime.
Mainly crime. It does
pay.
That's right.
Spoiler.
The crime of giving people a good time over there on Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. Find the tier that's right for you. We are literally 43 supporters away from hitting our goal on Patreon and making a documentary about all of our pets.
Yay.
That's the beauty of independent games media is for most media places, 43 people can't make a single difference. But for an outlet like us, 43 people makes all the difference in the world. So jump in there at even the $2 tier, $5 tier, whatever you want. Unlock the podcast version of The Deepest Dives. We would appreciate that type of support. Help us hit our goal before the end of the month. We are almost right there. And thank you to some of our biggest supporters. You know their names. Well, maybe you don't because they're new. But Sunday, everybody, a yard care company. Hey, Jeff, have you noticed that the snow's starting to melt here in Minnesota?
Absolutely.
And I at least have genuinely had that fear of seeing the snow start to melt in my yard. Like one half of my backyard is free of snow. And then I look at the yard and I remember, oh, that's right. I never take good care of my yard, but I probably should. Because the rare instances where I do get it looking good, it's nice. It's nice to have a good looking yard that's all green that you can roll around in just to wake up in the morning and feel alive, you know?
Sure.
Just like dig a hole out there and just go sit in it. Just good yard stuff, you know?
I love sitting in yard holes.
How's your yard looking, man?
Not great.
You need
some help.
You need Sunday to help you. Sunday is everything you need to get the lawn that you've always dreamed of this spring. Go to getsunday.com/MinnMax and enter your address to get a customized plan created just for your lawn. It's a cool idea. It's like put your address in, it'll dial it in like, okay, based on weather, blah, 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 all these other things, we can give you exactly what you need for your yard. There are no trips to the store or hauling heavy bags since they ship straight to your home. You just need a hose to apply Sunday. You can fertilize your whole lawn in less time than it takes to watch an episode of your favorite damn TV show. Sunday's easy and affordable. Some lawn care services, Janet, some of these hacks out there, they charge you $1,500 a year for a nice lawn. And to that, we say, dig a hole in the backyard and put them in it. Because Sunday's full season plan, starts at just $109. Sunday is offering a listener a little treat for our listeners, 20% off as well. Full season plans, $109. You can get 20% off when you visit getsunday.com/MinnMax. At the checkout, that's 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/MinnMax. There's a link below in the description for everything you need here. Thank you as well to our dear friends at I Am 8-Bit. They want you to know about Cozy Grove, the Nintendo Switch exclusive edition physical, also the PlayStation 5 exclusive edition from I Am 8-Bit. They truly make wonderful exclusive editions. Check them out. It includes a blind bag containing a collectible enamel pin inspired by Cozy Grove's ghostly denizens. They say leave it to chance or collect all 28 adorable bears for Cozy Grove with this exclusive edition thanks to I Am 8-Bit. There's a ton of fun stuff in there, so please check it out. And you can check out everything in their wonderful online store, iam8bit.com. Go there, find a wonderful gaming treat just for you. There's so much cool stuff packed in there, and you can use the promo code Shamrock Shake, no space, for 10% off everything under $100. Help support I Am 8-Bit because they support us in a big way by shipping out a prize each and every week to a MinnMax Patreon supporter, whoever submits the best question over on Patreon, determined by us, the impartial jury. That person wins a prize thanks to I Am 8-Bit. And this week, that person wins the Sea of Thieves vinyl soundtrack. 3-album vinyl soundtrack. So look alive, everybody. Thank you to IM8-Bit for shipping out the Sea of Thieves 3-album vinyl soundtrack to whoever has the best question here for question of the week. And there are links below for all these promo codes and everything if you want to check it out and help support them or help support Sunday for lawn care. All right, ready for these questions? These are hot.
Do it.
Ready? Kyle, do you think 1,000 people have made the joke about Star Wars where they say Hoth? They should call it Kolth.
No.
Do you think that's like Star Wars?
No, sorry, I'm not Kyle. Never mind.
Okay.
I redact
But my answer
no.
is the same.
It's the same, no. But you think that joke doesn't exist on Twitter right now? If I search the word Kolth?
Oh, yeah, it probably does.
Okay.
Right.
Because Hansen tweeted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, from his alt account, his burner.
Here we go. Death Star PR, a parody Twitter account in 2014, says, "What idiot decided to call it Hoth instead of Kolth?" So yeah, they're right there. Here we go. Hey, Ronmar the Only says, "Hello everyone. Initial pledger on Patreon. This is my first question." Congratulations, Ronmar. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Support us at any tier. You can submit a question every week. Make the show better. Ronmar says, with E3 falling apart before our very eyes, but not for the first time, will there be any changes to the Trek to LA itinerary? Okay, there's a lot of angles here. Let's unpack. Let's not forget about the Trek to LA. Let's talk about it. But the news about E3 this year is getting worse and worse and worse. First, it was like, well, Sony's not going to be there. Nintendo's not going to be there. Microsoft's not going to be there. Ubisoft confirmed this week they're not going to be there. And Ubisoft is down for anything. I could,
They released a bunch of Google Stadia games.
Yeah, exactly. I could put googly eyes on a tin can and Ubisoft would be there to support my creative efforts.
Wow.
So the idea that they are not going to be at the show is damning. And then IGN's reporting that Sega and Tencent are also out. At GDC, I definitely heard murmurings of it being pretty catastrophic for E3. I mean, there's also the PR company, or not PR company, but I guess convention company that's arranging this, ReedPop. Their president is stepping down in April, where it's like, that seems like an odd time for tackling E3. And it's, can't read into people leaving too much, but for their first big stab at E3 to have the president stepping down right before the show, it's a rough spot to be. It seems like Konami might still be going. Other than that, it seems like everyone else is up in the air for whether or not this show is even going to exist. Does anybody have hot thoughts just on the state of E3 this year?
I mean,
I don't think they can get their deposit back, right? Like from the convention center. So imagine, I feel like in that sense, it might happen. And I think it'll probably be like, I think it's shaping up to be one of the worst things to happen in recent history in the industry in terms of events. But I'm gonna be there regardless, as long as it's there. Like, I already got the time carved out. Like,
Yep. Okay.
Why not? Let's go down with the ship.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yep.
Was it? I think it was maybe Jeff Gertzman made a point that it was like, is it better for them to have no E3 than a bad E3 after this return? Because if it's like an empty show floor with just Konami, is that worse than it just not happening? And I think it's to me, I don't know. I don't think it's happening, man. I feel like we're going to get an announcement in a couple days that it's like, we're delaying a year or something, I don't know.
People will be there. It's like, I saw some takes of like, oh, even if it's just for indie games now, maybe it won't be the worst thing. But it's like, if just Embracer shows up and then a handful of weird accessory makers, like I'm definitely
I guess if Embracer shows up,
right,
that's a surprisingly like massive amount of games actually.
Right. Or even just like the subset, like Gearbox has always been a big E3 defender, even in their off years having their own conference. So like if Gearbox is there, that's something. They'll show a Borderlands trailer and that'll just be replaying on the show floor over and over again.
Like the movie you're talking about.
Oh yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm definitely always in the camp of, being the dog in the room on fire saying everything is fine, but I don't know. Like someone will be there showing games, and so it still seems like a fun, silly thing to go to, right?
So what happens if an official cancellation announcement comes through in the next like 12 hours and then this episode goes live?
That'll be really damning.
And also Hansen, I don't know if, the ESA and everybody in charge of running E3 have the same attitude of like, as long as somebody shows up, it'll be fun, right? Like, there's probably more business decisions going into it than that. And I think to Kyle's point, yeah, the idea of canceling it is bad, but if you hold it and it's a complete disaster, you're never going to get the big guys to come back. And how many of the smaller guys who go are going to be like, well, that sucked and we paid a lot of money to be there. Let's never do this again.
I feel like they're damned kind of either way because, even if they were to cancel it, which I'm not saying that it'd be wrong of them to cancel it because if it's starting to fall apart, my only rationale on why they wouldn't cancel it is just because they're in too deep, maybe on certain contracts where it's like, well, this thing is going to go and it is what it is. But I don't think they're going to show or do anything that's going to make people come back because it's kind of like a not self-fulfilling prophecy because it's not the right phrase, but at this point it's like a chicken egg thing. It's like, well, we left because you suck, but also since you left, everyone else doesn't want to be here. Like people only want to, it's only the place to be because it's the place to be, and if it's not, and that sounds so vague and kind of, odd, but that's the truth. Like, it's not that E3's E3 because it has the big people there showing their stuff, booking the meetings, having the showcases. E3 could be anything. And now it's just kind of like falling apart. And the idea is like, will there be something in its wake, or will we have the 1 million mid showcases? No offense, people that put on showcases, but a lot of the, I get tired of tabbing over to 8 different long drawn, again, it's just a mess. But that's the thing with E3. Like, I think if they canceled it, I don't think they're gonna, I don't know what they'd have to show publishers behind the scenes that would change their mind. I don't know if there is anything that could change their mind.
I think what would change minds is like if they are opening this thing up to the public and the public wants to go for the just glory of going to E3, especially people are pent up. Like, I think people would be eager to go. And if they get big numbers of the public going, then that might be enough to be like, hey, publishers, I know you didn't show up last year, but 2024, look at all these people that were eager to play anything new. Please let them in.
They have it open to the public, though.
They've had those years and numbers, and everybody still keeps on leaving. This is why it has been a slow moving train wreck for the past couple of years, and everybody has been saying like it's terrible that Sony pulled out the first year they pulled out, or that Microsoft decided to kind of just go kitty corner down in LA and do it. Like, you need to get those guys back under your banner, because if you lose them, it's no longer the place to be, like Janet said. And it's kind of been that way for years. And it's, now we're just, it's just the dominoes at this point. Yeah. So the core of your question, Runmar, are we still doing the trek to LA? Yes. So we had a Patreon goal, which we hit, where we're sending Leo and Janet and Sarah to Super Nintendo World, and we're piggybacking that to E3. But we were sending Sarah and Leo to E3 regardless. But we're definitely in that phase of like, we're ready to book hotels and book flights, and now we're in a wait and see. Like, if people that Jason Schreier in particular was talking to at GDC, the publishers don't know if they're going to go to E3 yet. Like, are we expected to book a flight when publishers don't even know if they're going to go yet? So I'm in the camp of like, I think it'd be kind of fun to go and not be naive about it, but like there's, even if it's just a booth with Konami and they're showing off the rumored remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 and then like 3 indie games on the side of that one convention hall, that sounds pretty cool. Like, it'd be fun to like make a ton of coverage celebrating just the surreal nightmare of E3 2023. So there's a way to cover it. I think that would still be fun, regardless of it being a disaster, compared to, I don't know. I'm always allergic because I feel like the last 10 years has been listening to so much E3 coverage, and every discussion is just like, it's not that good. It's not what it used to be. Not what it used to be E3. And like, every time I went, I was like, this is the best. What are you morons talking about?
There's a lot. I mean, in general, I think our industry could benefit from being a little bit less aggressively bitter and angry all the time, every day about something else. It's like, it's okay. All right, and some stuff is obviously warranted. There's big problems in the industry for sure. But yeah, I've been hearing E3 sucks for forever.
Yes.
But the difference is, I will say, after PlayStation left, it did start to genuinely like visibly skew in a way that I feel like is finally warranting the conversation that people have been having for like 10 years too early, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah, like, again, and I get like that, you know, things aren't perfect and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, why E3 was so impactful is that it got everything under that one banner, under that one time frame, and whether or not you were someone creating content, or before I went in 2019, that was the only time I went. Like, as someone that watched stuff, there was so much content to watch, so much coverage, like the big three, like showing off their presentation, everyone tuning in, people freaking podcasting off of like their phones, or like just piecing together stuff, doing 12, like there is an energy to that you don't see at anything else. And that's just fact. You know?
That's E3 2019.
Whack,
like,
but,
yeah, that's E3 2019. That's the one that everyone says, oh, it's absolutely worse. It's a dead show. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's not as good as it used to be, but like, there's still so much going on there that if it's 40% of the show that E3 2019 was, if it's 20% of that show, I feel like that's still a pretty fun thing to happen. But I understand
that. It's time to just GoFund Keely's empire, and just like, it's, you know, and that's the tough thing too, where it's like, I feel like the transition isn't quite as natural as you'd hoped maybe it would be, in terms of like, I do think, you know, Key 3 is picking up steam, but E3 was so huge with having like the big three there. Like, at this point, it's a question of whether or not any event could get them all together again, because so many people are moving towards that solo model. And not that it's necessarily a bad thing to do that, but I think once that starts to trickle down, it does become this weird, like, and now instead, you know how some of y'all were tired because you had to cover one big event? What if you have to cover 80 and like almost none of them are even worth your time? And we're just, you know, scraping like the bottom of the barrel for like, well, this piece was an interesting snippet from this. You know, let me jump in the CMS for this thing. Oh, there's another thing going on here. Like that. I kind of hate that it's structured that way now. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, we move with how things change, and there's still going to be fun, exciting coverage coming out about games. But yeah, it is a shame that E3 seems like it is on its last leg, and that this might be a really, really bad event.
Yeah. But I mean, are we sort of talking around, I mean, maybe we're not talking around it, but I mean, is Summer Game Fest just going to take the baton?
I mean, it seems like Keely's pushing for it.
That's what's going to happen. Is like, in the future, we will be talking about Summer Game Fest in the same way we talk about E3 that we did in the past. Is that what's just going to happen at some point?
It is certainly what Keely would like.
I mean, I think he would agree, but I don't know if he'd have like officially. And it's kind of weird too, because Summer Games Fest is like, there'll be stuff happening that's like not Summer Games Fest, but he's like, it's on the Summer Games Fest calendar though. Again, that calendar, Ben, the power of the calendar.
You're right. You
can put anything on that calendar.
I'm not sure like how smoothly in an ideal world, I think even if E3 is an E3, like someone else just puts their name on it and that's basically E3. I don't know if we're ever really going to see the big three cohesively under a single banner again, just by way of how people want to conduct things, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
you know,
what Keely had representatives from the big three on the stage, right, for the Game Awards a couple years back. And like, if he could pull it off like that for Summer Game Fest again, just as a slight, be like, the torch has officially been passed from the ESA and E3 to now Summer Game Fest. But it's just that
thing. It's like, what does Nintendo gain by not just having a direct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
we're already in that zone. We're already in that zone where everyone's doing their own thing and streaming their own thing. It's just the physical location will be less exciting for the people going there. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's not as exciting as an event as it used to be, but there's still going to be a ton of announcements in the summer that'll be fun. Drake Heinhorst. So yeah, basically, we're still sending Leo and Sarah out for Super Nintendo World and presumably for some gaming related stuff, but the specifics of that and how many days.
You know what, Sarah, Leo, we got games in my apartment. It's all good. We got games at home, you know? We'll have our own E3. Isaiah's going to make the hot wings.
Yep.
So
that sounds great.
That's already a dub. On that alone, we'll go to some retro games. We'll figure something out, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll be here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The last one of these goals was around just getting Janet to come out in Minnesota. There weren't any shows going on out here.
Ain't no shows out here.
You guys made a ton of content around Shrek, for crying out loud.
You're right.
Sending them out to California,
I did find
great,
a West Coast Juicy Lucy, so we could try that out.
Ooh, that's good content. Drake Heinhorst writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax, after enjoying the HBO show, my wife has decided to play The Last of Us Part 1 as her first video game, and then eventually The Last of Us Part 2. With the help of some accessibility options, she's doing great. Is about halfway through the first game, but I find it interesting the knowledge that I take for granted after a lifetime of playing games. For example, she has issues navigating the environment and telling what can or can't be climbed. And when she asks, how do I know? I can't really determine an answer other than I can just tell by looking at it."
Got white paint on it.
Yeah,
It's yellow. Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm like, this is where Horizon. Let me tell you about Horizon Forbidden West, okay? I got you.
What's this game? They say, what are some...
By the way, that was not meant to be like a dismissive joke. I think that makes total sense that if you have not been trained, your whole life to recognize that, I do see it being confusing.
What are some gamer senses you've developed from playing so many games? I do like that. Just the unspoken logic of like, an easy one I was thinking of is like, playing games with like my nephews or other people that don't play too many games, and then like just which doors can and can't be entered. It's like, what do you mean? There's a door over here. It's like, no, I know that's not a building you can go in. I'm 100% confident, and this one clearly is. It's like, I guess there's just the art detail level or something,
I mean, so many things. I think just having a sense of unified control schemes is a big one. And I even, as a lifelong gamer, but I started out with much more limited genre-wise. So I mainly played platformers and sports games and things. The first time I played a game where the run was on L3, I'm like, I didn't know that I could click the stick to run. And it took me also a while to get used to clicking the stick to run. So I think unified controls is a big one. I think just learning the fact that one thing I go back to even as like a longtime player is unless you like mess up your game, which can happen, the developer wouldn't make a scenario where I wouldn't be able to get myself out of a situation. Again, there's bugs and stuff or sometimes maybe oversights, but I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this. Or also just like the logic of placement. I even thought of this for like when I was playing Botany Manor, at PAX. I'm like, well, I was stuck on a puzzle and I'm like, and, I was working through it with Isaiah and he's like, oh, maybe it's like back in the courtyard somewhere we missed something. And I'm like, I'll go check, but I don't think and he's been playing games for a long time too, but I'm like, I don't think they'd put it so far away. Like,
right,
it just seems,
right.
I think things like that go a really long way towards like getting being able to quickly get a sense of environment, I think.
Yep.
Watch my wife play all these games. Every now and then she'll get lost somewhere and I'll like point out where it is. And one time she asked me this very like scenario of like, how do you know that's where you're supposed to go? And it's like, it's lighter over there. Just like,
right.
Go wherever the lights are.
Yeah.
They're literally trying to shine you where you go. But when environments are so realistic nowadays, like sometimes that kind of thing doesn't click in your mind and you're not thinking like, oh yeah, literally it's a spotlight pointing where I should be going.
Right. Yeah, I think like a small one is like waterfalls, and you know the flavor of the game, be like, there's a secret behind this waterfall in this type of game versus this is just a waterfall. Of course there's not going to be a secret back there, but you just get a feel for it,
A specific memory, a friend of the show, Brian Vore, I remember him talking about like Zelda style puzzles once. And he said like, if it's too hard, if whatever the solution you think you're doing, if it's like, that's really difficult to pull off, you got to do this crazy backflip at this specific angle. It's like, then you're not solving it right.
Right.
And I think about that all the time where I'm like,
yeah,
there's no way it's that complicated. And it's never is, you just got to take a step back and sort of simplify it in your head, which can be tough sometimes.
I think too, learning the language of a franchise as well. Like in the more modern era, Resident Evil 7 was my first ever time playing a Resident Evil game, and I played with my friend who is a big fan of the series, and we were like, passing the controller back and forth. And for one thing, she was solving a puzzle, took an item, started rotating. It was a weird shaped item, like just a weird like block of wood. And she's like, okay. And then she starts rotating it. And I'm like, how do you know to do this? She's like, it's Resident Evil. Like,
right.
You see a weird like shape. It's like, this is probably going to cast a shadow, and the shadow will open up a door, and then you hit the piano key or some, nonsense.
Yeah, that's gaming. Yeah.
Something patently stupid.
Like it's the classic, who designs a house like this, right? Like, but if you haven't played those games yet, that might not go as smoothly for you, or even like in the modern era, like reloading a gun. Like it still takes me a while to learn how to reload my guns because I don't play a lot of games that have guns in them. But you live and learn.
Tom Record writes in and says, hey folks, I recently pre-ordered Dredge based on the podcast from last week about it with Jill, and it got me thinking, what do you think your first indie game you ever played was? And you think it changed how you view video games? I used to strictly play AAA games, but when Stardew Valley first came out, I gave it a shot, and now it's one of my favorite games of all time. Well, this is the fun conundrum of defining an indie game, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
Super
I mean,
Meat Boy.
there's always
Boy.
the Flash games that you go back to, but in terms of like the one that I always think of like playing on a proper video game console that I felt was indie was like Xbox Live Arcade, and it was Braid specifically, where I was like, this feels like something different and unique, and the fact that it's not as long or 3D models, all that stuff doesn't matter because the core idea here is so interesting and fascinating. So that's kind of the first standout one for me, even though it's not the first by any means.
Right. I mean, there's old PC stuff. I mean, you can make a case for the Oregon Trail being indie. I mean, 1,000 games, right? That would technically probably fit this. But yeah, I think of like that 1UP show era. Like, I used to love 1UP's coverage so much, and like them fawning over like the pixel junk games on PS3 and stuff. Like that was kind of early downloadable PS3 games were a sweet spot on the console side. But then PC side, it was like Run Man, Race Around the World was a big one. If you remember Run Man. Darwinia for this kind of era, the late 2000s. World of Goo was one of my favorites. I freaking love World of Goo.
Yeah, on Wii.
They launched it on Wii. Yeah. It was also on PC, but yeah, the Wii version was huge for them and stuff. So I
remember talking to Dan Paladin at like a PAX many years ago, who made the argument that Alien Hominid on like PS2 was like maybe the first like proper indie console game because they didn't have a traditional publisher, but they put Alien Hominid on a disc on GameCube and PS2. And I mean, there might be something there. I'm not sure though.
It's Behemoth. Is that studio?
Yeah, the Behemoth. Okay. Yeah, like that was pre-Castle Crashers.
Right.
Alien Hominid was on Xbox Live Arcade, but it was also a disc game on PS2.
That's interesting, huh? Victor Pham writes in and says, "Hey, do games take too long to make now? What can be done to scale back development time?" Great question. I am always confounded by this because, even at GDC when they're showing off the new Unreal tech and it's basically click here, the game makes itself. You can't go wrong, blah, blah, ball. And then somehow the tools get better and every game takes longer to make. That's the part that boggles my mind. Like I specifically think of like Thimbleweed Park, the kind of Ron Gilbert's kind of throwback adventure game where it's like, it wasn't a wild development time, maybe like 3 years or something like that. But it's like when they were cranking out those old LucasArts adventure games in like 8 months, like with the tools they have now, why is this one taking 3 years for a game that still looks like that, And I guess the answer is just they're not 20 years old, sleeping in the office, working on this game all day. Like,
I mean, I think we still see some games come out really quickly. I mean, I still don't know how Insomniac's putting out so many games.
They're mind-boggling.
I mean, the name of the studio is Insomniac, but they do say that they don't have crunch. So
sure.
I mean,
that is the official statement.
Official statement.
I guess it was. Are they taking too long, as opposed to why do they take?
Are they taking too long? I would say no. Like stuff takes a long time. I mean, I make stuff way worse than a lot of the games I play. That takes me way longer to make. So how are they even coming out? Is my question.
Yeah. I mean, my maybe it's just getting older, but it's like my thought with video games that I'm excited about. Like, take your time. You delay Tears of the Kingdom another 2 years. Like, I don't care. It'll be good when it comes out, and I would rather you guys make it at a healthy pace.
Yeah, it's weird to be like, I want more broken games, but there are definitely cases of like, I don't need this level of polish from all the AAA games. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take a janky Naughty Dog game every once in a while if it means they release twice the amount of games in some of these creators' lifetimes. Like, that seems fair to me, but I understand that's sacrilegious to everybody.
I wonder if part of this entire conversation too is just how earlier and how more often we get media on games, and like when games are announced and how long. If you're sitting there looking at a feed wondering like, hey, when's the next update on whatever game, versus we would hear about games once a month in a magazine, when we were kids.
Yeah.
That probably shifts how long some of the development times feel.
But I mean, there's just so many examples. I mean, the GTA on PS2 games, right? The fact that they made Vice City in a year, like so many of those games that just by the calendar are mind-boggling. We just had an interview with Josh Sawyer, and he was talking about Fallout New Vegas, and they made it in under 18 months. It's just like, how the hell are these teams doing? I mean, Final Fantasy VI was made in like 10 months or something. It's like, what is going on? We're in a healthier spot. It's confusing. Muffin Crumbs writes in on a related topic and says, hey, crew, Ben, in your interview with Tim Schafer, you said that you couldn't see how any documentary in the future could ever be as transparent or honest as Double Fine Psych Odyssey. Why do you think this is? I understand it's a big cost to hire a full-time documentary crew to film all the time in the studio, but I feel like we're bound to get more studios who are inspired by Double Fine and go for the same kind of thing. It reminds me of everyone in 2020 saying movie theaters are dead and that we'll never get another blockbuster movie in the theaters, and then boom, Top Gun Maverick. And then people said that was it. That was the last big one. And then boom, Avatar: The Way of Water. I hear you. I also think that Double Fine Psych Odyssey should be the next Avatar: The Way of Water, Muffin Crumbs. I think you have a good point. I stand by that. I don't think we'll ever see a video game documentary be as thorough as this, even two-player. I know they just launched it, so it's not fair. But, you know, in our interview, they also stressed the idea of like, we want to do smaller things for a while. Like this was almost a decade of our lives. And you just think about them being in that studio filming every day for 7 years. I don't think anybody will ever do that again. It is such a bananas thing to do.
And it's also like other developers or publishers might see that series and say, yeah, we want that kind of exposure.
Yep.
But they're not thinking, yeah, we want to be that brutally honest.
Right.
And show all the flaws to our community.
And even if they are, and I'll keep this ambiguous, but like I was talking to one developer who like really loved Double Fine Psych Odyssey and they're starting development on a new game. And they're like, yeah, I love that documentary approach. I love it so much. We're going to try and record as much stuff as we can around the studio to make a documentary about it. It's like, that's noble. That's awesome. So I think it is inspiring people in the game industry to do that, which is awesome. But like filming a couple meetings on your iPhone or filming some Zoom calls is such a night and day difference compared to having the wildly seasoned, talented team of two-player productions filming with multiple cameras and 18 mics every day. You know, it's bananas.
Are they still embedded in Double Fine, or are they more freelance now?
No, they're full Double Fine employees. Yeah, two-player productions technically doesn't even exist anymore. They said in the interview.
I knew that. I just didn't know if they were at today. You know, or if anything had changed. Right?
No, okay. Yeah. Kyle, don't you have something you'd like to admit to the classroom?
Okay, so yeah, I started Double Fine Psych Odyssey.
Yeah.
I watched the first 2 or I think 3 episodes.
Okay.
And then they were talking about the story of Psychonauts 2. And I was like, well, I never beat Psychonauts 2. So I need to go and finish Psychonauts 2. And I was 2 levels away from the end. So me and my daughter took the time to like sit down and finally beat it.
Wow.
And now I have to get back to the documentary. So I hope you're happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if that really made me that happy. I thought it was going to be better. Because I remember, because the whole point was you wanted to, just like two-player productions.
This is what you wanted, isn't it? I did this for you.
I don't care about the game. Why don't you finish the documentary?
Kyle, just stop, just live your own life.
No, that's fine. But I remember you wanted to play through it with your daughter. Like, did she enjoy going back to the game?
Yeah, it was confusing for both of us, which was fun.
Right.
What's going on here? What's happening here? But then we also didn't want to Google too much because we didn't want to get the ending. Yeah, the reason we're playing the game was to not, be spoiled. No, it was a fun experience overall. Me playing with her, that was cool. She played probably 70% of it, and then I played 30% of it, something like that. Yeah.
That's sweet. Please go back and finish that documentary.
I want to watch more of it. This will blow your mind, Hanson, but I quite enjoyed what I watched so far.
Yeah, no S. Like, as somebody who also is in love with Tim Schafer's sense of humor, it's like, it's just 22 hours of good Tim Schafer jokes. I swear, that's all the documentary is. It's a good time romp for everybody. I know I talk about it too much, but it's still like, the documentary still like defined the entire GDC trip. Like, so many people, I say so, like there were thousands. There were probably like 5 people that came up to me and we're like, hey, your Double Fine Psych Odyssey coverage was great. And it's like such a weird thing to have people recognize me for being a fan of somebody else's hard work. But sure, hey, we'll take it.
Fan. I mean, isn't that what games media is?
You know what? That is exactly what games media is. And we're proud of it, damn it. But still, like, it kept coming up again and again and again. You know, like different developers are referencing, oh, Double Fine Psych Odyssey, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, it felt like it's now seeping in a little bit more and making more of a splash in the industry, which is fun. And still everyone is intimidated to be like, well, it's so long. There's so many episodes. Like, just watch it like a TV show. You probably watch a TV show episode every day, and it's probably some trash. Like, why not watch something that is, Yeah, I'll
You have an
stand by
interesting
that.
approach to appealing to people, Ben.
Tell them all their interests are trash.
Instead of sitting there
Right.
like an idiot, the way
Look,
you would be, just toss it on. It's not costing you
I'm
anything.
just saying, it's a Double Fine Psychology is better content than The Mandalorian. I will happily go to the mat these days. Toss on something that'll teach you something about your favorite hobby. Like you will learn more, you will feel more, you will laugh more from Double Fine Psychology than most TV shows. Okay, that's it. That's it. And,
was there a question? Why we?
yeah, the question is, will you
This is
please
Ben's
stop
own.
talking? No, it is Muffin just asking if anybody will ever do that again, make a documentary like that again. And the answer is no, because it's too special and good. Zach Killian writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax, since it's the 10-year anniversary of BioShock Infinite, what do you think of the game when it came out, and what do you think of it now? Do you think it holds up? Keep up the great work."
I have to excuse myself from this because I still haven't played any of the BioShock games. I
Oh,
haven't finished
interesting.
The first one. I keep restarting it.
Yep, I
Replayed
know
the
the
beginning like
feeling.
8 times. So
I really liked BioShock Infinite when
Same
it came
here.
out. I will, my sort of maybe negative memory of it is like the beginning is super strong and the end is super strong, and I don't remember a ton of specifics in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
but it is weird to me when people say that it's terrible or they hate it. And I'm always kind of curious, is like, well, what's the specific criticism? Which I'm sure they have. I'm not saying people are wrong or anything about their own opinions, but I just I thought it was like a really engaging, interesting story with cool action in a interesting setting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was like a weird structure for that because everyone was so hyped, long development time. You know, we saw so many different versions of it, blah, 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 reboots in development, all that stuff. It was so hyped, and then it finally came out, and the reviews were like 10 out of 10, perfect. And then it feels like the long tail of the game is everybody getting more negative and maybe calling back to like the original marketing again about why they were disappointed with it. But it was one of the weirdest trajectories of just the overall perception of a game. Because I'm totally with you, Kyle. Like, I really enjoyed playing that game. I remember thinking, like, okay, I'm done with the combat by the end. I'm done with this stuff. But just enough creative ideas throughout that entire thing that I loved it. I mean,
Performances.
yeah.
You know?
And I played it before the original BioShock, and then going back to the original BioShock, like, I would take BioShock Infinite any day of the week over the original BioShock for replaying it at least at this point.
I do want to replay it though, especially because it's back in that sort of conversation because of the anniversary. I think I have the Switch version, which might be an easy way to kind of revisit it.
Yeah. Well, you should just play Steam Deck at that point, Kyle.
Steam Deck's heavy.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
It's too heavy for your.
it's too heavy. I have a Switch Lite.
The
man.
Steam
That
Deck is
thing's
super
like
heavy.
a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Lovely. I still will go Switch over Steam Deck, given that as long as it, the Steam version's solid. Like,
Jan, how did you know we were talking about the
Switch,
Steam Deck? I thought you turned your volume off.
I lowered the volume, and I feel like you guys weren't going to remember to get me back, so I've been just slowly raising it and catching pieces. And I heard the Steam Deck being too heavy, and I'm like,
Okay.
this is my time to shine. I will say though, like, the Steam Deck's so luxurious feeling. It looks so good. The buttons feel so luxe. Like, I don't know. It's worth putting up with, I think, a little bit.
No, I play a lot on my Steam Deck, but Switch Lite though is where it's at, man.
Have you been putting a Squishmallow underneath you when you play the Steam Deck?
No, I lay on my back and hold it above my head, so it's just this like
A real
parallel.
workout.
See that?
No, pro gamer hours.
Deck of
It's
Damocles?
really, I played Resident Evil 5 on my Steam Deck recently, and it just made it even scarier. It was great.
The Steam Deck, the thought of the Steam Deck landing on my face, like I think I'd lose my sight. I think my glasses would break and shatter in my iris.
Oh,
Yeah, see, when I do it with the Switch Lite, it like floats like a feather, and then it gently lands on my nose.
It's like Link dropping down from the
You fall
little
asleep
Sky
playing
Islands.
it, and every time you snore, it
Honk
wakes back
shoe,
up.
honk shoe.
Falls back down.
Jeff, you like that BioShock?
Yeah, I honestly, we put it on the poll for is it good?
Yeah, for Initial
and
Plus.
I didn't know why we were doing it or where that controversy came from. And when you mentioned the cover, like that's the only thing I can really think of that people ever complained about was it was a guy with a gun on the cover.
Right.
Yeah, the cover was not great.
Well, there was this
It
thing
wasn't
called ludonarrative dissonance, Jeff, that I don't know if you noticed it, but it made the game not fun. Yeah. Let's see, Garrett. No, but I remember that was a big discussion too. When the game came out, I was like, yeah, it's a fair point. He's eating out of garbage. I get it. Garrett Wainstock says, why don't I put my scrambled eggs in a bowl?
Because you got to put other things on the plate next to the eggs, like toast.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the idea. Because you only put things in bowls if that's like soup or cereal, like the only thing you're eating.
It'll run away from you.
Yeah. Okay. I think scrambled eggs logically are better in a bowl, but I don't like putting them in there either.
Wait, are you eating them in a bowl?
I'm not. But I'm with Garrett. He's asking why, and it's like, it does feel like if that was anything else, with that texture and consistency, it should go in a bowl. But it's not right to eat scrambled eggs out of a bowl. Blasphemy. Okay, interesting. Tyler Kasishke writes in and says, with Resident Evil 4 remake getting lots of buzz, a friend of mine asked where they should start if they wanted to start playing the Resident Evil games. What do you think? Resident Evil 4 remake? Resident Evil 2 remake? 7? Where's the right place to start?
Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yeah.
Play the one everyone's talking about. Play the best remake of the best Resident Evil game. Why wouldn't you do that?
Because, and I haven't played Resident Evil 4 yet. I've been out of town. However, because it is pretty actiony and a little goofy, I personally, while I think in a set...
Yeah, two words that we use to define fun things.
Yeah, but in a weird way, while it's like, in a sense, the perfect fulcrum between the two types of Resident Evil, I think it is a little bit doofier and more slapstick, and I could see someone playing it and not liking that aspect and then being like, I think the series isn't for me, while RE2... I think it's just a fantastic game. Mm-hmm. It's not too scary if you're like worried about the scares. It has a very traditional, I think, setup. It's very like tight and organized. So 7 and 8 have the light spoilers for 7 and 8, just in case you haven't played them, has the problem of you're going around to different places. Like 7, it's like the house and there's the boat, and the boat part sucks.
Yeah.
Village, it's cool, but like also it's kind of like a lot of things, and like some of them are really good at certain spots, but it's a little like mishmash. RE2, just good, no notes. I feel like that is the easiest one to love, and I think it might be the best one they have. But I haven't played 4 yet. We'll see.
I think I think you're right in a lot of ways. I do think it depends on your friend. It depends on if your friend is like, if they like more silly action. Not that Resident Evil 4 is all silly action, especially the remake. You know what I mean? Like, there's still plenty of Resident Evil DNA in there. But if they like tighter, scarier, more puzzly, then go Resident Evil 2. And I'll be curious to see what I think about at the end of Resident Evil 4 remake, which one I overall enjoyed more, because Resident Evil 2 freaked me out. Like, I really was scared to play that game alone. Resident Evil 4, whatever.
But often with that question, I do tend to lean like, play the one that's the newest and the most like contemporary and the one that most people are excited about. Like, it's fun to play Resident Evil 4 remake right now alongside everybody else. But that's not to diminish the success that is 2. I adore 2. Resident Evil 2 remake is fantastic.
Stark writes in.
Are we not considering the first one?
No.
Yeah, how old are you?
Definitely not.
What are you talking
about? It's so old, it's tanky. It's been remade like 8 times and it needs to be remade again. Well, it's so rough.
Am I hallucinating that they haven't recently redone the first one?
So they did a remaster.
With normal controls?
Yes, they did. So they did a remaster. It has
improved controls.
They got rid of tank controls are now an option in the HD version of the GameCube remake that they recently released, but it's still, the camera's still jumping around and stuff. So I think the first one would be, 2 is the remake of 2 is so much easier to get into, I think, than the HD remake of 1.
And then no one really liked the 3.
It's still good. It's still good. Three rules.
Like when 3 came out, they're like, I don't know. And then when it came out again, they're like, it's still not that good, but okay. Like, no one talks about it though. It's odd.
I want to go back in time. I want to go back in time and fight harder for Resident Evil 3 remake on the 210s, because I think that game is a blast to play. And yes, it's not as good as Resident Evil 2 remake. Who cares? It's still a super fun game. Stark writes in and says, I was looking at a list of the best-selling Switch games, and an entry in the Momotaro Tentetsu series. Momotaro Tentetsu series was near the top of all third-party sellers on the Nintendo Switch. I have never heard of this franchise. Can anyone on the panel shed light on this series? I like this question, Stark, because I also
farming, right?
No. So it looks like it's a, quote, board game style series where you travel the world on a train and you do business and manage things. And I had never really paid attention to this series, but looking at images and stuff, I was like, oh, what an interesting franchise to be this big and has been going since the Famicom, I believe. And apparently, I assume just for the Japanese sales for the Switch, like versions are still tearing it up. I assume Kelsey Lewin is a big fan or something. Adrian Creates writes in and says, hey, all, here's a random nugget I came across last week in the form of a 1-question pop quiz. Kyle, no cheating, think of all the Star Wars games on Steam right now. What do you think is the number one Star Wars game based on user reviews, coming in at an overwhelmingly positive score with 26,000 all-time reviewed at 97%?
Okay, so it has the most reviews and the most positive reviews, or just like best percentage?
Yeah, best percentage.
I'm going to say, see, this is tough. Because I don't know if they're on Steam, but is it those RTS Star Wars games? Because it's going to be like the niche,
Kyle.
like that people
Kyle,
really love.
can you name
played.
one of those RTS Star Wars games? Come on, big money.
Gosh,
come on,
it's not
man.
Battlefront would have been a good name.
Yeah, it would have. Well, yeah. One of them was close.
I'm not gonna.
You were at the doorway. Star Wars Empire at War, the RTS from
that's the
Petroglyph.
RTS,
yep,
right?
absolutely.
There were
2006. Well, there was Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, which was based on the Age of Empires 2 engine. Before that, there might be more. I've never. Right. I played a lot of Galactic Battlegrounds. I've never really played a lot of Empire at War, but apparently that's number one.
Some credit though. For
that's good. Right? That's good, man. I'm impressed.
I came off as smart. Right?
Oh, big time. Okay. People are standing up and applauding while they're driving in their cars listening to this.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Because, like I said, it had to be a niche Star Wars game that is beloved by the people that played it and then just not played by the people who aren't interested.
That's it. Derek Giovanelli writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax, first-time Patreon supporter here. Thank you, Derek. Thanks for jumping in. We're so close to that goal. As a bit of a fitness fanatic, I find myself going to the gym twice a day, every day. Due to this, all right, get ready for this, Jana. Due to this, my Better Quest goal for the month is to go to the gym less while finding more time to rest. Quit bragging, Derek.
No problem.
Very impressive. Yeah, relax, dude. Play more games. Sit in a beanbag. Sean Rubin says, "Hey, MinnMax, you know the most interesting man in the world from the Dos Equis commercials? Who is games media's most interesting person in the world?" Games media. So they say maybe it's a developer with a million stories. Maybe it's a journalist who's seen everything. Maybe it's another content creator where you wonder how the hell did they pull this off. Yeah, if it's overall game industry and it's developer and press, then I feel like it's slam dunk to be in the developer angle. I think it's Mark Cerny. I think Mark Cerny has had the best perspective on the entire game industry, like going back to arcade stuff with Marble Madness, then working on Sonic the Hedgehog 2, then Crash, Spyro, Ratchet and Clank, directing Knack, and then freaking designing the PlayStation 4, designing the PlayStation 5, being the producer for like Death Stranding. Like, that is a wild career.
That is true, but are we really talking about vibes here?
You're
is this
right.
The most interesting man vibe. Because if you say Mark Cerny to that,
you're right. Mark Cerny. It is true. As much as we love and respect Mark Cerny, if he had a glass of whiskey in his hand, like, I don't think that's exactly.
If you pulled up a Mark Cerny headshot and like an Itagaki headshot,
right?
You'd be like, which of these people do you think is more interesting?
That is interesting. Like, does candor come into play with most interesting man in the world?
I think so. Like, you need a little level of swag to you.
Yeah, because like, if I could just wring a brain, not physically, you sickos, but wring a human brain and drain everything in there, I think Mark Cerny's the best brain to wring. Yeah. But I don't know if Mark Cerny's
definitely best brain.
If you could put Mark Cerny's brain into a more interesting body.
Well,
put that thing into a juicer.
Just a more open. I don't know. Look, I'm just saying.
I've never met Mark Cerny. Also, he could be like super cool.
He's very nice. He's very nice. I just, I don't think he's gonna. You're not gonna sit down next to at a bar and he's gonna be like, "You're not gonna believe this," and just he's not gonna like unload these awesome stories. He's still pretty.
He's gonna take a picture of the inside of your ear.
That's right. He wants those ear pictures. So who's number one then, Jeffem? For who has the Dos Equis vibe?
I have no idea. I'm not gonna say Kojima because I know that's what people want to hear.
It's not a bad answer.
Yeah.
Suda 51. The ones that are like the mysterious ones to me.
But it feels like they're all trying to be that person.
Right.
And it's working.
I want the person
Jeff is about this.
who just is that person.
Now, this person,
like I said, Itagaki.
What about somebody like Ken Lobb, who seems more open and amiable? Seems like somebody you could do some shots with. Going back to Rare, but then now Microsoft. Like, he's also had a wild career, but he's not like he's still a dork. You know what I mean? I don't know if the most interesting person in the world from the Dos Equis commercials can be described as a dork, but it's the game industry, so what are you going to do? We're all dorks? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's tough. Leave us a name in the comments, please. Let's see. Oh, speaking of that, Jake Zielsdorf writes in and says, were you brought up to say please? And do you still use it when asking for something, or does it feel too formal now?
I was not brought up to say please.
Yeah, I don't think it was a big thing for me either.
I say the hell out of a thank you, but yeah. No,
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was
thank you real hard.
Yeah. Tell me how deranged this is. I was not raised in a house. No, I wasn't raised in a God bless you home after you sneeze.
Sure.
And so therefore, also no Gesundheit, no nothing. And so still to this day, like when I sneeze and my wife from another room says like, oh, God bless you, or Gesundheit, just whatever. There's a part of me that's like, what are you doing? We don't need to do this. It feels foreign to my instincts, I guess, to have like the God bless you after a sneeze.
You know, we live in a society, Ben.
But does it really help anything? I don't want people acknowledging any bodily function I have at any moment in life.
And that's all the more reason that this is so important that we maintain. I don't know. There's something nice about it.
It's nice.
I think also because depending on the context, I understand you're like, oh, you're in the other room. Like, we're kind of doing our own things. But in context, it can help create an additional pause space. Because if I'm talking right now and I sneeze, and if you guys don't say anything, it's just gonna be silence because you're waiting for, am I gonna do another sneeze? What's going on?
Yeah.
It kind of fills that void.
It's the multiple sneezes that always gets me though, because I will sometimes, say bless you after the first one. But if you're a multiple sneezer by like the third one, I'm like, just shut up already.
I give you one, and then after that, I leave it alone, or else it's too much. I hate the. This doesn't happen as much with sneezes, but like my dad and sometimes my brother will do these dramatic yawns, and I'm like, all right, you're hamming it up. But like same with the sneeze. There are some people that really milk the sneeze. That's gross. Don't do that.
Milk the sneeze.
Don't never milk a sneeze.
So nasty.
I mean, it's the Seinfeld thing. We could replace it. Was it, you are so good looking? But even that I don't think. Kyle, is your daughter polite? Do you do a lot of training for please and thank you and all that stuff?
Training your daughter to be polite? Be careful how you answer this question,
Yeah,
Kyle.
this is the question.
I'll tell you right now.
Yes.
Good man. I was gonna recommend it just in case you weren't.
Just a reminder.
Yeah. Is your little baby boy, is he too baby to be polite?
Yeah, he's.
How rude is this baby?
Yeah, is this the rudest, baddest baby in town?
No, he'll if he's like eating a snack out of a bowl, he'll bring it to you in the kitchen to like put it away. That's the best we can hope for.
Wait, how old is this baby?
He's 2.
Okay.
So
that's like a toddler then.
He's not even saying, he's babbling at this point.
Oh yeah.
And nothing even close to please.
Ugh. Ben Shively writes in and says, I recently finished my top 50 favorite games of all time list, and I've had some very hard decisions to make along the way. These are some of the harder placements I had to make, and I'm curious what your choices would be. So we need to help Ben make the correct call. What makes the cut? Top 50 favorite games of all time. This isn't for us. This is for Ben, right? So what does he like more? Halo 3 versus Metroid Dread. I think it's Halo 3.
I didn't play Halo 3.
Halo 3 is, it's that question. Is it important or is it your favorite? Halo 3 is pretty dang important.
Favorite is how he puts it.
Oh, favorite?
Favorite.
Probably Halo 3, man.
Halo 3 feels right. I haven't even finished it, but it feels better.
Metroid Dread was really hard. I almost cried at the end because it was so hard for me. God, and I was already old. It was like a year or two ago.
I still have nightmares at peak COVID trying to beat that final boss before we record the deepest dive for Metroid Dread. It was just like layering all stress on top. It was wonderful. Okay, Mass Effect 3 or Half-Life 2?
Half-Life 2.
Yeah, Mass Effect 3. I love Mass Effect 3.
Oh, any of the Mass Effects in there. Half-Life 2.
If it's Mass Effect 2 versus Half-Life 2, I think I'd go Mass Effect 2, but sure.
Half-Life 2.
Okay, Half-Life 2. All right, Half-Life 2.
How old is this person?
Ben Shively? Oh, hell. Ben's probably 2. Elden Ring versus The Last of Us Part 2. I think Elden Ring takes it there.
And Last of Us Part 2.
What kind of quiz is this?
Why are these two games being compared? Because they're very different.
Well, what would we choose to put on that list?
Oh, well, Last of Us 2. You know, I don't play Elden Ring, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't put on a game just for like the clout that everyone has told me about.
Okay. Kyle and Jeffem, you're just going to...
So I said Elden Ring, but in a
Okay.
weird way, I do feel like Last of Us Part 2 is like underrated, which is such a strange
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
I feel
Interesting.
like
Oddly
it does
enough.
not get the credit it deserves for the incredible storytelling.
I think you're right. Dead Space 2 versus Left 4 Dead. Dead Space 2.
Dead Space 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dead Space 2.
I haven't played it, and I still know that's Dead Space 2.
Halo
I
1.
love both those games.
Halo 1 or Shadow of the Colossus?
I'll take Halo 1. Shadow of the Colossus is
If you
dull.
say Dusty one more time, Janet, so help me God.
I mean, it does have a lot
Maybe
of
I
guts.
should try it again, but I don't think so.
No,
It's probably not
don't.
true.
No, don't. Don't go back to it, but just now you should just say that it's the best game
I
ever.
enjoyed Halo 1. I actually did play Halo 1.
Yeah, we did the deepest dive on it. Hell. Yeah, I'd go Shadow of the
That's not
Colossus
why I
for
played
sure.
it.
I think I would go
That's
Shadow
fine.
of the Colossus, though, just personally, yeah.
Perfect. And Jeffem,
Much as I loved Halo.
you just played both recently.
I guess Shadow of the Colossus.
That's the sound of confidence, everybody. Speaking of confidence, what do we confidently believe is the question of the week? What wins the grand prize from I Am 8-Bit? The Sea of
I liked
Thieves
at
final.
the beginning when we were talking about Holth and Hoth. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a pretty smart addition to a long podcast. I like the one about Drake playing the game with his wife and like the gamer senses where you just know certain things.
That one was
I
nice.
think
that
that's
one, yeah.
interesting. The E3 thing is good. First indie game I
the
thought
most
was
interesting
interesting.
Man Alive, even though
Yep.
we didn't have a good answer.
Well,
but the question was good.
yeah.
Okay.
Our answers were bad.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be penalized for our bad answers.
Yeah, Jeff, where are you leaning, man?
God, they all just went right out of my head as soon as you asked me
Perfect.
that. What was the first one that you said?
The one about the gamer senses when you know you can and can't
gamer
do things.
senses.
All right, we feeling good about gamer
I like that
senses?
one.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that one.
All right, Drake Hindhorse, congratulations. You're winning the prize, the Sea of Thieves vinyl from I Am 8-Bit. And now it's time for something that we prefer to call Get a Load of This. All right. Janet, what do you got?
Get a load of this. I recently learned about the Tyler the Creator Fast and Furious theorem, I guess, which is that for the past decade, Tyler the Creator, the artist Tyler the Creator, always releases a studio album within 100 days of a Fast and Furious movie. So this started with Goblin, where it was like 11 days from Fast and Furious, and then it just goes down the list from like other projects.
Perfect.
And now, most recently, Tyler announced that he's going to be doing Estate Sale, which is like a deluxe version of his most recent album, and that's going to drop like within that window of the next Fast and Furious, which that one's a little cheap because it's not a full album. It's like a re-release with extra tracks. But this is such an odd occurrence of things. Up until the point where his last project, which was Call Me If You Get Lost, dropped on the exact same day as F9, Fast 9. So that's just a weird thing.
That's good.
More
That's
proof
good.
that we're living in a simulation too, if you're trying to come
That's
up
right.
with those things for
And
simulation.
for writing the code, that was the first line of code written, I think, for the simulation.
And I'm like, who put this in here?
Come on, this is pointless. Jeff, what do you got?
Get a load of this. This is incredibly nerdy, but it genuinely blew my mind when I saw this headline. Mathematicians have found the first aperiodic monotile. If that's not the most exciting thing you've ever heard, if you think of your bathroom floor and you want to tile it, right?
Okay.
You want a shape that will fit together without any spaces, right? And so if you pick like a square is like the most obvious choice, right? You can tile an infinite plane with that shape. And there are a bunch of shapes that you can do that with: hexagons, triangles, all those kind of things. But they're all periodic because they all form a pattern that repeats and has symmetry to it. And so since the 60s, scientists have been, I went down a deep rabbit hole on this years ago. But since the 60s, scientists have been looking for a shape that you could tile something without spaces, but it wouldn't repeat. It wouldn't have that pattern to it. And they've been searching for decades for it. And just like last week, someone found it. And it's this weird looking kind of 13-sided shape that's made out of like basically kite shapes into a larger thing, but it fits together in all these different ways. But when you put it together, no matter how big of a plane that you tile with it out to literally infinity, it will never make a pattern that will repeat infinitely. If any of that makes sense to you,
I think I got it.
It's a crazy rabbit hole to go down, and it just blew my mind because I read about this years ago, and all the literature at that point was like, oh, someone found it with 2 shapes that you could do it with, but this elusive shape was just found. And it's so basic, like its building blocks are so basic.
Yeah.
That it's like, how did this exist and no one found it, and now they found it for some reason.
They should have made like a tabletop game about it, and I feel like gamers could have gotten to the bottom of it faster.
That is why I went down it. The rabbit hole was like tile laying games and how shapes fit together, and it's really interesting to me. And now they've just made this shape that will. That's
cool. I want to see it.
Itself.
I want to see it in a bathroom tile. Like I want to see that on HGTV within the next 3 months.
I would assume that you could. The other example, the guy's name was Penrose. He came up with these two shapes, but he patented them and then would like sue people if they would use them.
Throw him in the ocean. Throw him in the ocean.
I know. I don't know if they're going to try and do the same thing with this. But yeah, if you want to read a whole bunch about this weird shape and all the science and math behind it, we'll give you the link.
There's a link below. Kyle?
Hey, get a load of this.
Okay.
Mine's a lot like Jeffem's. Snoop Dogg recently visited Glasgow, and he was greeted at the airport by a bagpipe player playing Still Dre on the bagpipes.
Yeah.
And it's like him on the tarmac just doing his best to like dance to this bagpipe player, like doing that song, just to be like, hell yeah, that's great, man. And it's like really sweet and also just hilarious. It's very funny. I don't know how if you're set up to play the actual audio, but there's a link below.
There's a link below. Awesome.
If you can't play the audio, it's very funny.
That sounds great.
And it's like infinite or something. I don't know.
It's mathematically funny.
There you go.
Oh man.
Hey, get a load of this. I watch Survivor every week because it's the best show on TV. And other than Succession, I guess.
Is Survivor better than the documentary series?
That's not get wild. No, that's Double Fine's I gotta say is better than Survivor. Janet, do you want to know what my life is?
Always.
Literally this morning in the shower, what I was thinking about is like, what do I want from media more than anything else in the world? I was like, I want Paul Owens from Two Player Productions to edit a season of Survivor. That is like my number one wish on planet Earth over, I don't know,
and
world
was Ray
peace.
J's wish too.
That's right. Anyways, so I was watching Survivor and, it's on CBS. And so it's just a bunch of weird ads. Like, it's just like a whole different ad ecosystem for like, what is going on? Especially like playing it from their crappy app, which barely functions. Like the ads they serve you are just bizarre, weird old people stuff. And this ad popped up. Am I out of the loop on what society is going through right now? But
yes.
Okay. Well, you say that, Jenna, but let me finish this. It's just a woman hawking a product and making it seem like the most normal thing in the world, where she's like, well, we all need butt deodorant. And so here's what it is. You put it along the inside of your cheeks, and it's scientifically proven to bring your stink level from a 5 to a 0. And I was just flabbergasted about the idea of butt deodorant being a thing. Has anybody heard of butt deodorant?
No. It's like that person needs a bidet.
I think that's the secret. Yeah, I think that's the secret. So you know what? CBS, good job. You know your audience. It's a stinky butt audience.
We're talking about it.
You know, the last time I watched regular TV, there was an ad. It was a drug ad, but it was for like an actual antipsychotic. And it was like the woman was talking to another version of herself. And it was like, you see and hear other people. Try, whatever it is. Ask your doctor about it. And it's like, is this really how you advertise? Who are you advertising like hardcore antipsychotics to?
It's a bizarre
world. Is that
world.
something you're going to see on your TV and you're going to believe it and go to the doctor?
That's the other thing.
Who knows? Hey, did you pull one from the community there, Jeffem?
I sure did. Get a load of this. This one was from Waving World, and it's a new Dan Olson video. He's the guy who runs Folding Ideas. He did the 2-hour documentary on NFTs and how they're a huge scam. And his latest one is called The Future is a Dead Mall, Decentraland and the Metaverse. And it's basically another 2-hour deconstruction on the metaverse and all the problems with it and how it's not a real thing. And it's a big scam as well. And it's very worth your time.
Sweet. Links below for all that fun stuff. And check out get a load of this channel in the MinnMax Discord, which is just a constant feed of the most interesting stuff. All right. That's it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching or listening to the MinnMax Show podcast. We mentioned at the top of the show, we have the deepest dive on Resident Evil 4. Just kicked off with the first episode. We will be collecting your comments over on Patreon for chapters 7 through 11. This Sunday. So if you're playing the game, you want to submit your thoughts for us to read during our discussions, we'll say your name, we'll read your comment, share your insight, join the hive mind. We're collecting your comments on April 2nd over on Patreon. If you're a $2 supporter on Patreon, you can submit a comment. If you're a $5 supporter, you unlock the podcast version of the full deepest dive right in your favorite podcast app. But that's not all, because we're real wildcats here. This week, we have 2 deepest dives running simultaneously for the first time ever, I'm pretty sure, because we have the grand finale that just went live for the deepest dive on Like a Dragon Ishin with truly a dream team panel. You got Leo Vader hosting this thing. Michael Hyam from Fanbyte, GameSpot is all over the world these days. So he's also on there. Jacob Geller's on there. Sarah Podzorski on there. Hats off to Sarah for being on 2 deepest dives in 1 week. That's very impressive. But they cover the final third of Like a Dragon Ishin, the new Yakuza game. So check that out. Help support Game Club discussions like that, because you could use some more love out there for spending that much time with Ishin. But we're glad for everybody that followed along, listened to all that, and played along with folks for Like a Dragon Ishin. So again, a reminder, we're 47 new supporters away from hitting our goal on Patreon. You could change the course of MinnMax Media by jumping in there. And you can jump in there on Patreon and check out the extended version of our travelogue to GDC, which is an hour and 40 minutes long. If you really want to know what it's like at GDC, you can check out the short version of the travelogue, which is up on YouTube to give you a whirlwind tour, or you can really soak in it for an hour and 40 minutes by unlocking that extra long version at the Backstage Pass tier on Patreon. It's like an hour of it is just Kelsey and I wandering the show floor at GDC, but it's a fun time. So if you want to see just a really long show floor tour and a bunch of other fun stuff, extended bits with me and Blessing, Snowbike Mike, Barrett from Kinda Funny, Janet, he's very sweet and said hi for a while. So all those extended cuts. I talked to Jeff Keighley. All that extended coverage is in that bonus extended version of the travelogue. And then if you support us on Patreon, you unlock Party Chat, our weekly bonus podcast each and every week. This week we talked about multiverses, kind of sort of shutting down before it's coming back later, which is a bizarre story. Talk even more about GDC, what it's like behind the scenes. People call in and talk about their experience at PAX East. Bob Buell, Janet, he talked about how much he enjoyed your panel on the dating app video game character thing. He said it was super fun.
Yeah, video game Tinder.
Video game Tinder, there we go. We talk about the best places if you're a gamer to go visit in Tokyo. People kiss Haley McLean's ass. There's a lot of good stuff on Party Chat on this episode, so I hope you enjoy that each and every week. And thank you especially to our biggest supporters, not our biggest, but some of our biggest, people at the $50 tier on Patreon, the Game Champion tier. They can choose any game under the sun and be declared the champion of it, and then all that stuff goes in a big old poll for figuring out which game we're creating bonus content about. Somebody was asking, Crowboy's asking at the Backstage Pass stream right now, he's asking, hey, when's that herb stream coming up? Sarah has a lot on her plate, including doing 2 deepest dives this week alone. And so we're going to stream herbs, which won the Game Champion poll, at some point soon. I would guess early to mid-February, or early to mid-April is the plan for streaming herbs as the Game Championship winner there. But shout out to Andre Silva, who's the champion of Dark Cloud. They are not letting Dark Cloud go. And Jawar Hello is officially the champion of Simpsons Wrestling. Truly a cursed video game, but Jawar Hello, you're undoubtedly the champion of it. So
did it.
Thank you so much. And hey, I think that's it. Anybody else have something they're dying to say?
No.
Surely.
Be good, have fun, let's go.
That was my idea, actually. But
I don't feel like you weren't dying to say that.
I'm dying to say it every time. Here we go, everybody. Thanks so much. Be good, have fun, let's go.